Welcome to the Bass and Brews podcast, your weekly distraction from other high-quality podcasts. And now, your host, Alex from Swamp Rat Fishing, and the co-hostess with the mostest, the Jabberhammer, Paul Roberts.
Hello, welcome to Bass and Brews podcast, your weekly distraction from quality podcast content. We are here today minus Swamp Rat Fishing. Y'all have known the story by now. I think he's got about 54 more days before he is retired. Back into good internet service at his home. Until then, you have to deal with me and whatever degenerate co-host I bring on. And today we have a great one, Shawn the Fisherman from Jugs and Bugs, aka Jigs and Bigs. Shawn, how are you today?
I'm confused. I haven't been on in a little while. When did you become the Jabberhammer, and what is that?
Oh, see, look, Brandon, this is how bad it is, man. This guy, he's the mother to this podcast, him and Bobby, and they don't even listen anymore. Our good friend, Cupcake Coley, called me to jabber one day because, I can't shut up. I talk all the damn time. And somebody added hammer on the end, and I picked it up and ran with it. Now I'm just waiting for Alex to make a shirt.
We gave you up as a podcast for adoption in utter shame sometime last year. So, yeah, I'll own that.
Well, I cannot wait to get Shawn riled up because if y'all have listened to any other episode that him and I have ever been a part of, we usually end up screaming at each other at some point. Hopefully that's not going to happen tonight since we've got a professional with us. And we have that bass fishing dude, Brandon. I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows who you are. How you doing tonight, House?
I'm good, brother. Can't complain at all, man. Living the dream,
I hear you. The tallest kayak angler in the world. I'm pretty sure that's a fact at this point, isn't it?
That I am. I have yet to come across anybody as tall as me or taller in this space.
and how tall is that?
7 foot tall. So
7 foot tall. That's why if y'all ever look at this content, this is the one person that you can look at the content and him hold up a fish and say, I got this is an 8-pounder. And if you question the size of that fish, you can question it because he makes an 8-pounder look like a 1-pounder in my hand.
Yeah, man. It definitely happens. A buddy of mine, he's always anytime I send him a picture of a good fish that I catch, he's always like, dude, he's like, put that thing next to the rod because I can't take anything from that and make it seem like I can't say that you're lying or telling the truth because to me it just looks like a 2-pounder. So he's like, lay that thing next to the rod. That's the only way that I can really gauge the size of that fish.
That's the truth. You guys just start taking no more selfies with the bass. You just got to put them on the board and let the board do the speaking. I
do that a lot too, man. That board definitely comes in handy. I definitely try to post a board photo whenever I catch a good one.
So, Brandon, tell us about yourself, man. What's brought you here today where you are sitting in front of Shawn and me on the Bass and Brews podcast?
I mean, a little bit of everything, man. I mean, I've been, ripping and running through this outdoor fishing space for a few years now. Obviously grew up fishing my entire life. That seems to be the tell-all story of every angler. Obviously doing a different style of fishing than I grew up doing. And, it's just been a real journey, man. A lot of fun to get to this point, building my own personal brand, obviously, networking, connecting with different and various people throughout the industry, making a lot of friends, obviously traveling around and fishing and telling some unique and, really cool stories and chasing some awesome adventures. It's just been a lot of fun, man. I mean, I'm really appreciative of you having me on the show, to chit chat about some different things.
Yeah. And I have to thank our buddy Drew from the Paddler's Playbook for getting us connected. I have, I've been following you for a while. I found you through, I think it was a Paddle and Fin probably podcast last year. And I've been following you with that and then just, going through it. And you're an intriguing figure because of, how big you are, right? Because when folks get into kayak fishing, that's one of the things that if you're ever around new kayak anglers on a Facebook group or anything like that, people are always asking, I'm 250, I'm 300, I'm a big guy. Yeah, what can I fish out of a kayak? And you always hear, now you have to have the right kayak to be able to fish like that.
Absolutely.
But you're a good example of anybody can get in a kayak and catch fish.
100%, man. And I think that's a big part of the reason why I do what I do, and why I've been able to do it so well. I'm 7 foot tall, 310 pounds, 315 on a good day. And, that's just me with just clothes on. That's not including, fishing gear and all that other stuff, or me and my kayak or whatever. And, it does, kind of set this example for people that are coming into this sport, because there is a lot of questions, from new anglers and new people that are looking to get into kayaking and things like that. You see it, like you said, all the time on the kayak forums. Is like, man, I'm 260, 270, 300 pounds, I'm, 6'1", 6'2", what is a good kayak for me, and the reality of it is that there is tons of boats out here that can support an angler of your stature. And the reality of it is that, yes, if I can do it, then anybody can. I'm out here fishing, standing up, fishing comfortably, confidently. I'm a person with a broken spine, out here, 7 foot tall with a broken spine, 310, 15 pounds, standing up fishing out of a kayak, a plastic boat. And not just, obviously I'm in a Hobie Pro Angler 14, 360, obviously that is, top tier of the fishing spectrum when it comes to kayaks. But I started out in a Three Waters Big Fish 120, a 12-foot kayak, paddle kayak. I have an NRS Cuda inflatable kayak, that I stand up and fish out of comfortably. It's, there's a very wide spectrum of kayaks that are out there on the market that would surprisingly support a lot of people. That all it takes is for you to just get out there and give it a shot, and you'd be surprised just how much fun you can actually have on these boats and how well it'll support you.
Now, Brandon, you said, for folks of large stature, being in the right kayak. Tell us about the wrong kayak that you fished out of the first time for your, because that story that's a good story.
Yeah, man. Hold on just a second.
Oh, somebody trying to break in.
Yeah, I got 4 dogs, man. They're nosy. But
hey, man, you can bring them on. We'd love pets on this podcast.
Yeah, so a kayak actually almost ended my kayaking career before it even started. So my wife is from up north in Maryland, and she grew up kayaking and things like that. So one year, it's about coming up on 4 years ago now. It's probably about 5 years ago when I bought her the kayak. But she was like, I really want to get a kayak. So I was like, all right, cool. So, Mother's Day rolled around, and I bought her one of those Bass Pro, Ascend FS10T kayaks. Nothing crazy. It's a little sit-on-top kayak. Comes with a paddle. I think it's like $400 or $500 kayak. Nothing crazy. Nothing super expensive. But for her, it's perfect. Small statured person, works out perfectly fine. And this is right around the time we used to have a boat. We had a 27-foot tri-tune, and we pulled. It had a 150 Merc on it. We pulling tubes and all kinds of craziness with this thing. And so we'd mothership her kayak out. We live right here. I'm 5 minutes from a lake, so we'd mothership her kayak out there all over the lake, and we pull up in a cove or something and slide it into the water, and then she'd just take off on her kayak and do her thing. And one day, I was, sitting on the boat, and I was just like, man, that looks like a lot of fun. Like, I'd like to try that. And so, I throw my PFD on. She comes rolling back up with the kayak, and I was like, hey, I want to try that. And so, I slide down there onto the kayak, and this kayak is so small. It's a 10-foot kayak, and it's like 28 inches wide. So it's not some big wide crazy platform. And I was like seriously maxing out the weight limit on this thing. I think it only has like a 324-pound weight limit or something like that. It's not very much. And so, the stability of this kayak is just, for me at least, is out the window. So I sit down on this boat, and like I can't even sit in it like you would sit in a normal kayak with your legs in front of you on the boat. I actually had to sit on the kayak where my back was completely flush up against the back of the seat and my legs were hanging over the gunnels. That's the only way I could sit in the boat, because anytime I tried to put my legs in front, it was instantly trying to tip. So again, I'd never been on a kayak, so I didn't really know what to expect. But so I get my my bearing. Obviously I'm sitting in the kayak the wrong way, but I got my bearing, and I threw a little spinning rod on the back and a little rod holder, and I paddle off on the kayak. Well, her and the kids take off on the boat. They just burn off and leave me over here in the
See ya.
Yeah, so I'm like kind of just paddling around and making a few casts here and there, and dude, all of a sudden, just water just starts pouring through the scuppers on this thing. So, I'm like freaking out because, like, I don't really know what to do in this situation. Mind you, I can swim like a fish. I've taken drown proofing and survival swimming and all that stuff when I was in the military. So falling off the boat and into the water is not an issue for me. It's just the fact that this kayak is sinking, or at least in my mind, it's sinking, and I don't really know what to do in this exact moment.
You thought you was about to lose your
going nuts. Like, I start like waving my hands, and I'm like, hey. And my wife, they're like, probably half a mile away, on the lake. The girls are swimming and stuff, jumping off the back of the boat. My wife like looks over at me, she's like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, no, hey.
He's having so much fun.
And she's like waving, and I think this went on for like 5 or 6 minutes before she finally realized, like, oh, maybe he wants me to come back over there. So she starts the boat up, and they come back over there, and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, this kayak is sinking. And she's like, babe, you're in 5 feet of water. You can literally just stand up right there. And I'm like, that's not the point. Like, I know I can stand up right here, but the kayak is still sinking. So, again, freaking out for no real reason. But, the boat just wasn't made for me. So, right. I get off the boat, and I get back I get off the kayak and get back onto the boat, and I'm like, I'm never getting on the kayak again. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, that is just not for me. And I think it took me about a month. About a week or so went by, and I was just like, man, I was like, there's got to be something out there that I could get on. I was like, because at the time, this is right around, I think I had been like, just bank beating for probably 7-8 months, and I was really just looking to get off the bank. I didn't want to get a John boat or anything like that. I loved the allure of this kayak thing, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. To have a kayak. So I think it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks that went by. I was just deep thinking on this, scouring the internet, because I was like, man, people fish out of these kayaks. I was like, there's got to be better boats out here. And so I start looking and looking. Boats start popping up, Bonafide, SS127, SS1 or RS117, SS107, the Feel Free lineup, Vibe starts popping up. I was like, man, look at all these different kayaks. And I started looking at the weight limits. That was the first thing I started looking at, was the weight limits. And because I was maxing out that Ascend FS10T, literally at the top of that thing. And I came across this is right around the time that Three Waters had hit the market. They're a sister company of Feel Free. And so I found the Three Waters Big Fish 120, man. I was watching all these headwater videos on YouTube about this kayak, and it just looked so cool, and it looked really stable and sturdy. It was big, it had enough room in it, had a decent sized seat in it that I felt like it would hold me. So, I popped over to Mariner Sales right here in Dallas, and Duke over there took me to the back where they had one on the shelf, and we pulled it off the shelf and laid it down on the ground. And I had Lila with me, my 9-year-old, and she wasn't 9 then, but I had her. We went over there and we looked at this kayak, and I sat down in it on the floor, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And,
I ain't sinking this one, baby. Let's go.
Man. And it's a sub $1,000 boat, and I bought it right then and there on the spot. I can't remember if it was for Father's Day or something. I think it may have been for Father's Day. I got that kayak. And man, I fell in love with paddle sports from that day forward, man. I think I took it out that same weekend that I got it. And I was in love, man. Love at first sight, man. It was the coolest thing in the world to me, man. And I spent 2 years in that boat fishing hard, man. That thing, That thing's got some serious miles on it, man. It's got a lot of slime on it. You know, for probably about the first year, you know, I hadn't built up the confidence to stand up in it. Like I had tried to stand up in it, but you know, you get up a little bit and you're like, oh, crazy. And then one day I literally was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna stand up and see what happens. And I was fishing a lake up north of me, one that I'm a big fan of. It's a smaller lake. It's about 3,000 acres. A lot of really good fish in there. It's a really easy to pattern lake, but there's some giants in that freaking lake.
Hey man, a 3,000 acre lake is like the ocean to compare to Shawn's lakes.
Oh, bro, that ain't nothing. We got lakes out here. The lake that's right here next to my house is 27,000 acres.
Yeah.
I mean, we got.
I live on a lake that's 8 acres.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got tons of those too. But bro, there's monster lakes out here, man.
You call them puddles down there.
Yeah, there are some big lakes out here. But you know, one day, and I just stood up. You know, I was just like, you know, forget it. I'm just gonna stand up. If I fall out, I fall out. And I stood up, and I was like, you know, the thing that I was focused on was just not locking my knees. You know, I was like thinking about like a person again. For one, I've never been surfing before, but I used to skateboard. You know, so I grew up skateboarding and rollerblading. So I was always, you know, your best balance is when your knees aren't locked. You know, bend your knees a little bit.
And you're also an athlete, so you understand body position and all that. Like, you know, that's good knowledge to have when you're in a kayak.
Absolutely. So, and I stood up, and I was like, okay, I got it. And then I made a cast, and it got a little wonky, but I was like, oh, but I didn't sit back down. You know, I just kind of like saw it through. You know. And I figured it out how to do it. And from that day on, man, I was standing up fishing out of that thing like it was nothing. I could walk all over that boat.
Mm-hmm. And that's awesome.
Yeah, man. People would always be like, man, what kind of kayak are you in, dude? He's like, I see you out here fishing in that thing. And they were like, man, dude, we gave one away. Like that was when I hit I think my 10,000 follower milestone on Instagram. It might have been 10 or it might have been 5. I think it was 5 or 10K on Instagram. I gave away the same kayak that I was in. I gave I was working with Austin Canoe and Kayak, a long time partnership with them before all this stuff happened with them going out of business and things like that. But you know, great company, great group of people over there, man. Always took care of me. We partnered together on a big giveaway, and I gave away a 3 Waters Big Fish 120, a PFD, and a paddle. And you know, the person that won that kayak, man, he ended up becoming a really good friend of mine. And he's gone out on a guy's trip with us. And, you know, I talk to him all the time, man. And he fell in love with the sport because of that. He was in one of those old Lifetime Walmart kayaks, you know, that he paid like $200 or $300.
Talking about no stability.
Oh, man. And, dude, he is a fishing fool now, man. Like, he's actually in the process of selling that boat because he's buying an Old Town PDL. So, you know, nice. He's upgrading. Oh, yeah. You know, he's been in that boat almost the same amount of time that I was in that boat before I decided to upgrade, you know. So I mean, it's cool, man, to just, you know, to grow the sport in that manner, man, to pass that on to somebody else.
Yeah, that's cool. And we've talked about on this podcast, and I've talked about it with some other people about growing the sport. The sport of fishing really isn't growing, but the sport of kayak fishing is booming. Yeah, because the sport of kayak fishing is booming mainly because it's getting it's getting folks off the bank and into the water.
Yep.
And you know, to be able to show people that you don't have to be like Alex, 4'9" and 120 pounds. Like Brandon, Alex didn't hear us, so this isn't as fun because he won't get all red and you know, embarrassed, but you're like 6 Alexes. and Alex Brandon is the guy who started the podcast, my guest co-host, who's, like I told you through text, is out on his last tour in the Coast Guard. But anyway, you're like 6 Alexes. Tell me this. This is a question that I'm more curious about outside of the kayak. What the hell kind of PDF do you use? Like, because is there a special size? Like, I mean, you're a large human being.
Paul.
Yeah,
PFD, not a PDF. He's not wrapping himself in files, dude. It's a PFD, personal flotation device. We'll get there. It's good.
Hey, I'm colorblind. Don't pick on me for being dyslexic too.
No, I use I started out with an NRS Chinook, humongous, massive fan of that that PFD, and I just upgraded to the NRS Raku, which is it's a newer model PFD that they came out with last year. They're actually revamping it again for 2023. But so the Chinook, I don't know if you're familiar with that PFD. A lot of people in the paddle sports industry are. But it has that really high back with the just the mesh lower back, so that when you're sitting in your seat, you're not it's not overtaking your back.
It's not hot in the Texas sun.
Yeah, so the Raku actually has a full pad on the back, but it's really thin. It's a really, really thin pad. But the front of the PFD is identical to the Chinook. And but it just has a more cushiony back, but it's a real narrow pad that runs up the middle of the back. So you still got the mesh on the sides, and it's just got a narrower pad that runs through the middle. That's probably about a half-inch thick. Whereas obviously some PFDs, that pad is 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick on the back. But yeah, it has the pad is more spread out across the back versus that of the Chinook, where it's just really high. I still have the Chinook. I still wear it. I really actually like that that Raku a lot. So I wear that a lot more. When that came out last year, I started really wearing that one.
And on your fishing, you said you grew up fishing. Sounds like mainly from the bank and stuff.
Yep.
Where when you started fishing, when you got your big water and you started fishing like Kayak, where were you in the novice, expert level? Where were you in the fishing from a boat aspect?
Oh, it was non-existent. Like I didn't grow up fishing from a boat at all. I grew up fishing like everybody else, worm fishing. Some people grew up bass fishing, but that wasn't something that I grew up doing. I grew up, throw a line out there, sitting, waiting, whatever hits it is what hits it. It could be anything.
That's right. Especially in Texas.
Oh man, yeah. I grew up fishing with my dad, my mom, and my aunt. So, we fished a lot, just growing up. But and even as an adult, I still fished in that manner. It wasn't until about 4 years ago that I really, took this leap to want to learn how to chase bass. It all kind of just came from me watching some YouTube videos, and then a buddy of mine that I went to college with was a bass fisherman, and it just inspired me to go out here and chase this fish, this one green fish, because my mindset and thought process behind it was that if I could catch that, if I could figure out how to catch that one green fish, that bass, I can chase and catch any species on the planet. And that's kind of my mindset behind it. So that's how I ended up fishing for bass. It took me about 2 months before I, of just fishing really hard, not from a kayak, but even just from the bank, beating up the, the neighborhood ponds and all these little ponds and stuff around, DFW, before I actually held one in my hand that I had actually caught. It took 2 months of me basically fishing almost every single day after work or every weekend. I literally bought every piece of soft plastic that you could imagine, and my wife actually banned me from buying soft plastic. And because I'm not joking, man. I probably had $5,000 worth of soft plastic.
Oh my God, you literally had about everything, Dan.
Yeah, man. And dude, every time we go to Walmart, I'd buy something else. And she's like, "Why do you keep buying this?" I was like, "Well, because I need it." And she's like, "You got that at home already." I was like, "But I don't have this color."
That's right.
This is before my my mindset. Obviously, the more and more I got into this, the more and more I realized that I didn't need a lot of that stuff. And that's where it kind of just turned into what it is now.
What was the catalyst that got you to where you are now, where you go out, you catch big fish, you know what you're doing, put you at the expert level? Was it YouTube? Was it local folks? Was it just you going out there and figuring that out on your own? What was that catalyst to ramp up? Because that was 5 years ago. You're fishing from the bank and just getting into bass fishing, and now you got it. And there's some of us that have been fishing for a long time and don't got it like you got it.
I mean, dude, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It's a mix of all of it, but a vast majority of it comes from just time on the water, and it's really interesting because I don't tell a lot of people this, but I do tell people this because it's the reality of it. When it comes down to it, is like I don't fish as near as much as my social media would make one believe. You know, I work a full-time corporate job. You know, my followers know that I work a full-time job. They know I work Monday through Friday. But, you know, a lot of people from the outside looking in, they may not know that. You know, they may not know and understand because they look at my social media and like, man, this dude's on the water every single day. He's on the water all day long. That's all he does is fish every day. Dude, I don't. Like, I might fish once or twice a month in some cases, you know. But, you know, the difference is when I'm on the water, I maximize that time when I'm on the water. I'm taking advantage of every single second that I'm out there. And, you know, whether that comes from the aspect of content creation or just, again, you know, growing my skill set. And, you know, to say what the catalyst was that got me to where I am today, you know, a lot of it is from, you know, studying other people, you know, things that people have told me, but also it comes down to just putting that time and putting that work in on the water because, you know, fishing is hard, man. Like it is a lot harder than people make it seem, dude. I go out here and I zero a lot of times, man. Like I have terrible days on the water, but then there are some days where the stars align and I knock them down, you know. And I mean, and it just works. But there's a lot of trial and error that goes through it, man. A lot of trial and error that happens more often than not.
And on Bass and Brews, our guests are primarily content creators. That's where we look for people to bring on here because they're interesting. They have a story to tell, and they know how to tell that story. And one of the things that I learned when I started kayak fishing and started creating, I'll call it my content. It isn't really that good, but when you go out and fish and you catch 12 fish in a day, that's 12 different pieces of content. And so I'd get the same thing, or my wife would get these how do you let Paul go fish so much? And I'm like, look, if I go out and catch 12 fish in one day, that's 12 pieces of content I can spread out. And your content, you alluded to that. People think you're out there fishing all the time because of the content you create. And if y'all have not looked at his Instagram page, you got to go look at it because his content is phenomenal.
I appreciate that.
When did you start that? What got you into it? And then how did it morph into being, you know, a damn star in the Instagram realm?
So, you know, I've always been a part, you know, all the way back from my days in the military, man. Like, you know, it's always been, you know, I've always put 110% in everything that I do. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, half step on anything. You know, that's not something that I do. You know, my wife will tell you that I'm passionate about everything that I touch, and like whenever I touch something, I'm like hyper focused on that. And so, you know, for me, it's always been about quality over quantity. You know, there's this mindset that in this space of content creation that you just need to post. You just need to post. It's not about the quality of the post. It's not about any of that other stuff. But the reality of it is that the quality stuff goes a lot further than the quantity does. And if you take that time to put a little bit more effort into the content that you create, you're going to get a lot more out of it. And for me, you know, even from the beginning, I've always been focused on the quality aspect of it and less about the quantity. You know, when I first started this, you know, this whole entire thing, I wanted to be a YouTuber. You know, that was what my goal was. Is I wanted to be the next John B. You know, I use John because he's a good friend of mine. You know, I really enjoy his content and things like that. And he's a stellar fisherman. But you know, that was my mindset, is that I wanted to be the next John B. You know, I wanted to put together these unbelievable YouTube videos, and I just wanted to make as many YouTube videos as possible. Well, after starting and doing that for, you know, a month of just making YouTube videos, I realized really quickly that wasn't actually something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a YouTuber.
That ain't easy. It ain't easy to create that YouTube content like that.
Well, what it is for me, it's redundant and it's boring. You know, whenever you look at YouTube creators and YouTube content creators as a whole, especially just in the outdoors or fishing space, or just in any space for that matter, it doesn't even necessarily have to tie into the fishing space or outdoors. Dude, a lot of these videos are just rinse and repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And, you know, this is not a knock on anyone or, you know, on Tactical Bassin or anything like that, because I really do love Matt Allen and Tim Little's content. You know, I love everything that Tactical Bassin is doing over there. But do they literally make the same 12 videos every year? And they literally just rinse and repeat them with the same information, and they add in something new the next year. You can literally go back on their YouTube page and watch every video that they've put out for the last 12 years. There's literally an identical version of every single video on their page for the last 12 years. And it's just redundant. It's just the same thing, recycling over, rinse and repeat. And for me, it gets old after a while. So, I started, really thinking about and formulating how I could still make YouTube content, but do it in a way that it was still fun for me and it wasn't redundant. And that was whenever, I met my best friend Charlie, who runs a marketing business. He's a marketer at heart, runs a marketing company. And dude, this man has been fundamental to, my strategization of growing my fishing brand. He's the one that kind of helped me outline and strategize around building my content strategy that would make it so that I could create the content that I wanted to create without it being redundant. Because again, that's mostly what a lot of this content that is out there on YouTube. You can look up any one of these other fishing guys that are around here or anywhere else. Their videos are all the same. They're fishing the same, 10, 15 ponds, catching the same 5 or 6 fish out of those ponds, making a video, the same thing over and over again. Human highlight reel, hook set after hook set after hook set after hook set. There's no substance to that. And I mean, it's not something that I personally find enjoyment out of watching. So it's not something that I think that my audience would enjoy watching either. So we've always, focused on chasing an adventure or telling some unique story, doing something that's out of the box, that's going to inspire, you to get up off the couch and go out here and do the same thing.
Whoa, don't be picking on me because I'm fat. Alex ain't here. We don't need fat jokes when Alex ain't here. Look, damn it, boy. I tell you what, I can't get away from a fat joke to save my damn life. I swear, y'all gonna make me lose weight one day picking on me like that. It's okay. Go ahead with your story, Brandon. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. But, we want to focus on creating content that's going to inspire people and motivate people to get up here and go out and chase an adventure, whether that's on the bank, whether that's on the boat, or whether that's on a kayak, whatever it may be. It inspires you to get up and go out here and do the same thing. We create content, that is transcending, it's something that it sparks interest in your mind whenever you see it. It makes you feel like you're a part of what we're doing.
It's engaging.
Yeah, it's engaging. And, it inspires and motivates you to get up and go out here and either try to recreate the same type of, feeling or moment, or just go out there and just enjoy being outdoors. And that's what's always been the focus for me is, because, a lot of people that get into this space and, they start, doing this content creation thing or whatever it may be, they often lose sight of why they're doing it in the first place. The numbers start stacking up, their followers start blowing up and all this other stuff. And they lose sight of the whole entire foundation of why they started doing this in the first place. And for me, that has never changed. It's always been for the love of fishing. Everything that we've always done in this space has always been about growing the sport of fishing, growing the sport of paddle sports. And it's always been for the love of fishing, for the love of the sport. So, it's easy to stay on track with that because we never forget why we're doing it.
Yeah, the storytelling part is, you said people lose sight of why they're making the content. And I feel like the storytelling part is where you see the evolution of people kind of losing the early part of their videos and stuff like that, right? Chasing the views, chasing the likes. They start getting some checks from YouTube or, start making some money, getting some sponsorships. And so they lose that storytelling part of it, but that's what people want to see. My whole thing with channels and people that I follow on social media is it's educational, it's entertaining, or they're catching big fish. It's one of those, or all three of them, or a mix of the three. But that's the people that are successful. They're typically doing at least one of those things. And Tactical Bassin is a great example. They put out the same content every year with whatever new lure came out. They'll throw that in, but it's educational. And when you have a lot of new people coming into the fishing space, they're going to go towards that kind of content because they're learning something. It's the educational aspect. But to keep that viewer coming back video after video after video, that story part of it, like feeling like you're there with you and you're going through that miss, or maybe you catch one fish and they spend 20 or 30 minutes watching that video the whole way through for one fish, because it's the story and it's how you put it together. And that's the part that keeps me engaged with the channels that I continue to watch.
100%, man. Because that's where what it's all about. That building that personal connection with your audience is key. To building and growing a solid audience. And to do that, you have to put out good content. Again, a lot of people, especially in this space, or just in any space when it comes to social media growing and things like that, their mindset, comes from a lot of these bigger, account, your Gary V's and all these other people that are out there like, oh, just post the content. Nobody cares what it looks like. Just post it. Like, no, man, that's BS, man. You definitely want to put out good quality content. Yeah. And because, you got to think about the audience that you're trying to build off of that. You want somebody that's going to continue to come back and enjoy and watch your content over and over and over again. You want to be able to create content that is going to draw that new people in all the time, and you want to create content that people can always go back and watch, that again, that they can gain something from it. And that's one of the things that's always been important for us, is just always making real, authentic content. Show the good with the bad. Because the reality of it is fishing is not some big human highlight reel. You're going to go out here and you're going to zero. You're going to go out here and you're going to break rods. You're going to break off. You're going to get hooks in your hands and legs and face. You're going to do all this different stuff. You're going to fall out of your kayak. You're going to fall and skin your legs up. You're going to do that. Because that's the reality of what being in the outdoors is. That's what the reality of fishing is. Fishing isn't always catching fish. You're not always going to catch them. You're going to go out here and some days you're going to have a 100+ fish day. It happens. But then there's a lot of the times that you're going to go out here, you're going to grind and you're going to struggle, and you're going to catch 2 12-inch bass or a catfish, and you're gonna it's gonna suck, but we tell those stories and we show those days anyway, because again, it doesn't give somebody a false impression of what the sport is. Because the thing about it is, whenever you sell somebody that false impression of what the sport is, especially a new angler, somebody that's coming into this space or thinking about getting into this space, they see you out here, just slamming hook set after hook set after hook set after hook set, 10-pounder, 12-pounder, 5-pounder, 6-pounder. They're like, oh man, that looks awesome. They go out and they spend $300 on fishing gear and $1,000 on a kayak, and they get out here on the water and they absolutely zero. And it's, they spend, 5 hours out here literally backlashing every time they cast, or, almost falling out of their kayak or losing a bunch of gear, and just flat out not catching anything. And then that person they walk away from the sport and they never want to do it again.
The little bit of YouTube content I've put out and all the video that I've collected that I haven't put out yet, I always, in my videos, kayak fishing, you're in a confined space. I have never had so much shit get tangled up and so much crap happen in fishing than I have in a kayak. And I always, any kind of that stupid stuff that happens, I always put it in my videos. I put it in because that's where my commentary gets very colorful to myself, but it is also, that's the real part of fishing in general. But then once people get into these little plastic swan boats, stuff happens on a kayak and you get it. That, to me, that relates to people.
Absolutely.
Going and messing up and overhand casting and throwing a rod out in the water, or one of your rods one of your rods comes loose in the back and you go to pull it and you don't know it, and it's tangled up in the 4 of the rods behind you, like that kind of stuff. Or to me, the thing that I hate the most is every time I use a net, and I fish a lot of treble hook baits, you get a fish in the boat and it takes you 10 minutes to get the treble hooks out to deal with stuff. So I've always tried to put that in there because it's real. And again, I like videos where people show that. I like to watch the pros fish MLF and bass when it's a grinder and they're struggling. I like to watch that. I want to see how they react.
Absolutely.
I want to see how they go to fish. Like, that's the stuff that interests me. Now, obviously, there's a market for people that go out there and post videos catching bigs and a lot of fish. But, again, I think we're really honing in on kind of the people coming into the fishing game. When you can show that it ain't all sunshines, rainbows, and unicorns, they feel a little bit better about their journey into fishing and all the shit that happens, because it happens to everybody, getting hung up and losing stuff. I mean, that's the fun part of fishing. When you record it, if you record your stuff, that's the fun part when you sit down to edit it and to post it. That's where you kind of pick on yourself a little bit. And that's where people get back. Most of the comments that I get on mine are always about, hey, man, it's funny that you put, getting tangled up, or, your braid getting wrapped up into a knot at the end of your rod and having to cut it off. Like, that's the funny shit.
Yeah, man. And there's not a video on my channel that you can't go watch that literally, like, the first 1 to 5 casts that I make and they are literally my first 1 to 5 casts that I don't blow a reel completely to smithereens. Like, just the biggest and worst backlashes. And dude, it's in every one of my videos. It happens every single time. Like, and Charlie's like, man, it wouldn't be a TBFD video if there wasn't a backlash in it.
That's right.
And,
Speaking of smithereens, when you got up to shut the door on your dogs, the conversation was going at, that first kayak I had almost put me off kayak fishing. I thought for sure you were going to pull out a big sliver of polyethylene saying, this is all that's left of my Extend FS10. It lasted 4 minutes. And it screamed and exploded.
Yeah, man.
Brandon, it sounded like you were more afraid of sinking your wife's kayak and getting in trouble because it was gone than anything else.
Bro, funny story, man. That kayak actually did not survive that trip. So man, this is crazy too, man. It's funny you bring this up. Me and some buddies of mine, we did a guys trip down to Fairfield Lake a couple years ago, and a buddy of mine, he didn't actually have a kayak. So again, I had my 3 waters at this time. So I was like, I told my wife, I was like, hey, do you care if, I bring, your kayak? So, my buddy Scott will have a boat to use. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Just don't tear it up. And I was like, well, I'm not going to tear it up. And so we went down there, drove down to Fairfield, boats in tow, had a good time. I think we were down there 3 days. And, we pack up, wrap up everything. We're driving back. So I have, my 3 waters in the bed of the truck, and then her boat is right next to mine in the back of the truck. Tailgate is up, so her, the stern of the kayaks is hanging out of the back of the truck.
Yep.
And I strapped them down. Great, I thought. And we're driving back. I'm rolling, man. My truck. It drives like a Cadillac. I mean, I could be going, 90 miles per hour, and you never even know it.
And it's Texas. That's the minimum speed limit.
Most definitely. And so we're rolling back, man. And we're driving. Probably, I think we had gotten maybe about 2 or 3 miles outside, past the lake, and like I hear like this giant boom, 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 like, and like I thought I had run something over. So like I'm looking in the rearview mirror just because I'm going, I didn't stop, I just thought like I had run something over, like, like one of those gators in the road, an 18-wheeler tire. We call them gators.
Yeah, armadillo.
Armadillo. That's what I was going to say. It had to be an armadillo.
I've hit one of them bad boys too, but I thought I just ran one of those. So I'm like looking in the rearview mirror, don't see nothing. I look, up in the middle rearview mirror, and both of the kayaks are still back there, or so I thought they were back there. And dude, I'm just driving, just rolling. And I think probably 20 or 30 minutes went by, and we're just chit-chatting in the truck. And I look up in the rearview mirror, and then, I look back down the road, and then I look back in the rearview mirror again, and I'm looking, and instead of the stern of the kayak, basically looking where like I'm looking at the top of the kayak through my rearview mirror, I'm looking at the underside of the bow in my rearview mirror. And I'm like, no, there's no way. So we pull off the road real quick, dude, and I get out and I go back there and look, and we had been dragging my wife's kayak behind my truck on the highway, bro, going 90 miles per hour. Nobody drove by me and honked and said, "Hey, by the way," bro. So my Three Waters Big Fish is sitting out of the back of the truck like it's supposed to. Her kayak was sitting next to it, hanging off the back of the tailgate like this. The bow of the boat was coming up over the top of the tailgate, and the stern of the boat was on the ground. Bro, it had completely sheared off the back half of that kayak, bro. Completely sheared it off. And Scott gets out of the truck and he's like, "Dude." And I'm like, "Bro." And so, you know, I had to call
my wife is going to kill me.
Oh man, I called her.
Tear
and
up my kayak. Honey, we ain't gonna tear no kayak up.
Man, I don't even think I said anything. I think I took a picture of it, and we were just standing on the side of the road, and I just sent it to her. And she texted me. She's like, "Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "I told you not to tear up my kayak." And I was like, "I know." I was like, "It was an accident." And dude, it was all bad, man. Like that boat was like, I'm talking, it completely cut just a 45, dude. It was just an open shell with a 45 sheared completely off the back of it.
And that's when you purchased your first ever Hobie 360 was for your wife.
Nah, man. That's light years ahead of that one. But dude, man, that was too crazy, man. Like that whole situation and scenario was just wild, man.
That kayak deserved it.
It absolutely did, 100%, man. It was about worth that much. I mean, I couldn't believe it, man. I was baffled at that because I've been dragging that thing for 30 minutes. I had no idea. I'm talking about we probably driven 15 miles.
I can't believe nobody was like, "Hey,
bro." Nobody said a word. There was cars. I mean, maybe it was because I was like blowing by everybody because like I'm rolling, like I'm going 90 miles per hour. I'm just cruising. So I'm passing everybody. There isn't really anybody that's passing me. So maybe that's just why nobody said anything. But dude, that was absolutely crazy.
Dude, you're doing 90 down a Texas highway, dragging a kayak like that. The first thing I'm thinking when you whip by me and I'm not honking, I'm like, "Wow, that dude's on meth."
Yeah, like got to be something, man. Got to be something.
Somewhere on the internet, there's a video of you passing somebody on the internet dragging that kayak. It is somewhere on the internet in video form.
I wish I could find it, bro, because I'm telling you, to see what that looked like would be insane, bro. Absolutely insane. Like this is before my truck had anything on it, before the shell, before the wrap, anything like that. Before I had, the lift and the wheels and tires on it. This is my truck when it was just plain Jane. And dude, I would kill to see a video of that because it was. I'm sure it was absolutely insane to be behind me.
Don't tear up my kayak. We ain't gonna tear up your kayak.
Dude, that's exactly what I said. I was like, how am I gonna tear it up? It's a kayak. That's literally what I told her. It's like, how am I gonna tear it up? It's a kayak.
It was at that moment he knew he effed up.
Oh man, dude. Golly, bro. That's funny right there.
Look, when you tell your wife that you ain't gonna do something, you better double and triple check that you ain't about to do it somewhere down the line. Because sure as shit, they know something. Don't do this. I ain't gonna. What do you think? I'm an idiot? Yes, honey, I do.
It's a Rick James moment right there. Yeah, no, I didn't put my feet on his couch. Yeah, I put my feet on his couch.
So, Brandon, are you running any technology? Are you shallow fishing, or do you have some graphs, forward-facing sonar, or anything like that on your stuff?
Absolutely. My setup is pretty dialed. Probably one of the more dialed setups out here in the game. So I'm running a dual Lowrance Elite 9 Elite FS9s. I'm running active target as well. I do fish a lot offshore. I've actually over the last year I've shifted focus a lot to really, really dial in my offshore game. So I spend a lot of time fishing offshore.
Was that?
Go ahead.
Was that out of you just wanting to? Was it tournament centric? Like what led you to go more offshore?
Again, it's one of those things where I'm really focused on becoming and being the best angler that I can possibly be. Again, to kind of back this up a little bit, a lot of people that I think that fish on social media, they're not really focused on being great anglers. They just want to be content creators. So, and I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of the content that we see out here today from the fishing space, from a lot of people is so redundant, because they're not focused on becoming and being better anglers. They're just focused on getting the shot and, making the best YouTube video they can possibly think of. I'm focused on being the best possible angler that I can possibly be. So that's part of the reason why I fish competitively as well. 2 years ago, you couldn't have paid me to fish a tournament. There's no way, because I'd have been like, I've literally said this, is that I don't want the fishing that I do to turn into work. And because tournament fishermen, at least the ones that fish tournaments full time, like, your Christine Fishers, your Guillermo Gonzalez and all these other guys out here, your Chad Hoovers and so on and so forth, Gene Jensen, those guys that fish full time, that are tournament anglers, that's all they do is fish tournaments, bro, they're working. Like, tournament fishing is hard, you know what I mean? So, 2 years ago, I'd have said, nope, I don't want to fish tournaments. I don't want the fishing that I do to become work, because I genuinely love the sport of fishing. I genuinely love fishing. But I took a step off the deep end last year, and I started fishing tournaments. And I fell in love with it, man. I love fishing competitively, especially when you get into a good trail with a great group of anglers. It's unbelievable how much fun you can have out there fishing. And it has really, really, really changed the way that I fish, even just when I'm out fishing for fun and, out here chasing content. I mean, I create content from my tournament stuff as well, but it has completely changed the way that I fish. But how I got, started in this offshore game thing is again, just wanting to solidify my skill set, become and being a better fisherman. That was a big part of it, man. I really wanted to learn how to fish offshore and chase suspended fish in 60, 70, 80 feet of water, 20, 30 feet of water, to go out here and be sitting out in the middle of, 150,000 acre reservoir, a mile offshore or 2 miles offshore and 6 foot rollers with 35-mile-per-hour winds and still catch fish, out of a kayak. It seems crazy to the average person, but it was something that I wanted to do. It was something that I really wanted to learn how to do. I watch a ton of fishing. Like, I'm a big fan of, like you said, the MLF and the bass circuit and things like that. Sure, these guys are fishing out of a bass boat, so they've got stability on a whole nother level when it comes to fishing offshore. But dude, just the quality of fish that you find offshore, man, is second to none in comparison to the fish that you typically find up shallow. When you find those offshore staging areas, man, that are just holding the right fish, dude, the type of fish that you get into, man, is just it's so different, man. It is literally a totally different type of bite. And Charlie, my best friend, he is completely against fishing offshore, man. This dude is a no foot to 10 foot water fisherman, man. Like, he loves shallow water fishing, and I love it too. But for me, again, here in Texas, in the dog days of summer when it's 110 degrees, those fish aren't in that shallow water. And the ones that are up there in that are not the ones that you really want to be catching. And I'm always telling Charlie, like, man, we got to get out here and get offshore. And he's like, bro, he's like, there's fish up here, man. He's like, I'm gonna get them. I was like, well, you keep on messing with them fish. I'm going out here offshore. I'm gonna go find me some fish out here. But Charlie is a stick too, man. He definitely, dude, on days that I'm not catching anything, man, this dude is literally just laying into him. And
go ahead.
Days that, like I said, days that I'm not getting on, Charlie is just on him, man. Like, we'll be out on the same lake and he'll be fishing somewhere, like he'll be up shallow, I'm offshore, or he's like semi-offshore and some slightly deeper water, 12 foot of water. And, he's just throwing like a swim jig or something, man. This dude is a swim jig throwing fool, man. And this dude can catch everything swimming on that bad boy. That is a bait that I have yet to get dialed in on, a swim jig. But that man right there can catch some fish on a freaking swim jig. And, yeah, it's just days that I'm not catching anything, man. He is just laying into him, man. And, we just kind of play off of each other. It's like there's days that I'm just getting into all the quality fish, and he's, just not really finding the right ones, or he's not catching anything, or days he's on them and I'm not, or it's, vice versa. But it's just fun fishing with him, man. But, yeah, it's just crazy.
Shawn and I were talking about this right before you came on, technology and specifically, and how, it's part of the fishing game now. To me, and get into I don't even like to get in those arguments anymore. It's here to stay. It's to me, it's no difference than you being able to fish with a Zipco 33 or a Shimano Corrado.
Yep.
We can purchase both. We can fish with both. We can catch fish with both. The technology is just another tool in there to do it. And you referenced something that Shawn and I were talking about with fish being offshore in the summertime there. I'm in North Carolina. The fish in the summer here, same thing. Those fish are going to be schooled up offshore. You're going to have a better quality fish that you can catch more consistently offshore. And they're going to be in bigger schools. So when we have a kayak tournament here and there's 50 people on the lake and everybody's beating the bank, you can't go run a bank. It's just not going to happen. So being able to pull offshore. Shawn is in the Northeast / New England area, and offshore fishing for him is Shawn, correct me if I'm wrong here, is more predominant than shallow fishing in the short amount of time y'all had to fish before shit ice is over. But technology is here to stay, and being able to learn how to do that. Everybody talks about being a well-rounded angler. To me, a well-rounded angler ain't somebody that can throw every lure or, majority of lures and know how to fish them. They can fish shallow. They can fish offshore. It doesn't have to be deep, but offshore. Yep. And you can go where the fish are, because you can't catch fish where fish ain't.
Exactly.
And so being well-rounded means that you can go target fish in different areas, different water columns. And Shawn, that's what we were talking about earlier with technology. Neither one of us have forward-facing sonar, but we talked about how it's becoming something that if you're going to fish competitively, and all three of us were athletes at some point in our life, that competitive drive, to me, is the reason I got into kayak fishing, because I didn't want to go into a bass club and fish out the back of a boat. I did, it's fun. It's a good learning experience, but I could be in a kayak and actually do my own thing, and I could compete. I could fish our local trails. I could go to some of these national trails.
Yeah, I think we did cover this a little bit on Jigs and Bigs a few months ago, and it's just something that, with forward-facing sonar, it's developed that reputation of being, God, and I hate this word, Paul, advantageous. It's a tool in the tool box for an angler, but sometimes other anglers will look at that and say, well, that guy's got live scope, I'm screwed. Right? On certain lakes, that can be the case. At a certain tournament, that can be the case. But I think there's been such backlash on it, and the general feeling of anglers who may not be able to afford it, or who, in my case, I don't want to pay for it right now. I mean, it's expensive. Where we, and I know, Brandon, you've been fishing for, really seriously 5 years. Paul, how many years you been fishing, like seriously? 10, 15?
Broken up, probably 15.
So I've been at it hardcore for 15, but as much as possible for over 30. And the only time
you're old, we get it. You're bald, gray, and old.
No, but the only time I can remember, and I brought this up on the show, was the only time I can remember backlash like this was when the Senko debuted. And it was like cheating, and someone who maybe hasn't put the time in all of a sudden is putting up those numbers like someone who has. And that's the only real comparison I can make. But the difference being, it's going to take a lot of $8 bags of Senkos to add up to a Garmin Live Scope. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's our game. Our sport is always going to change. And, right now I'm digesting ways. I'm trying to figure this out. Is this the direction I'm going to go in? Because it's an immense cost, but I just, again, finished in a tournament, middle of the pack, where live scope was really, fishing through a live scope was really the dominant way to finish in the top 10. I think 6 out of the top 7 in this tournament finished, had live scope. and it's tough to compete with that on certain lakes when you don't have it.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
So-
I'll tell you this, man. Go ahead.
real quick, side imaging from a technology standpoint, not a lure or anything like that, but side imaging had a bunch when it first came out. It had a lot of the same arguments and stuff when it first came out because you could see outside of down below your boat.
Yeah,
And that was from a technology standpoint, and that's where we're headed in fishing, right? Lures have been regurgitated year after year after year, and you can listen to Ken Duke talk about how lures that are coming out now that people think are fresh and new. Well, back in the 30s, there was the same lure at some point, but the technology is really kind of that big thing out there, and side imaging, I would say, was a big I don't know, argument point or whatever.
It was a step. This is like a quantum leap.
True,
you know what I mean?
True.
That's
how technology works, though.
Yeah.
Technology doesn't go. I mean, a year from now, the technology we're using now is quasi obsolete.
I get that, but it's been recently in the past 15 to 20 years where we're seeing developments year by year that used to go decade by decade. You know what I mean?
But that's technology. Technology is faster than anything else we've ever seen.
But lately, the past 20 years is what I'm getting at. The advancements have come way quicker. Way. I mean, think about just televisions, all right? We had tube TVs for how many years, and they would slowly evolve. And then the next thing you know, we have flat screen tube TVs, and those lasted for what, 5 years maybe? And then all of a sudden, bam, you had 3 or 4 different kinds of true flat screens that were what, 3-4 inches thick to start, and now they're down to what, an inch and a half.
They're thinner than that. That LG
but that's
TV is like as thick as a paper phone.
Yeah, and now we all have basically flat screen TVs with multiple inputs on our kayaks. All right. I mean, think of that. That's all been. I mean, we went from tube TVs for 50 to 60 years, and then in the space of, I mean, when did I first saw a flat screen was what, 2003. All right. 2003, in 20 years, we have gone from a flat screen tube TV to a 9-inch monitor on our kayak with 4 or 5 different inputs with forward facing sonar where you can see fish attack a lure in real time.
It's amazing.
I mean, yeah. But remember, we had 50 years of tube TVs before that, or 60 years of tube TVs before that with slow advancements. And then all of a sudden, what did it? Semiconductors? I don't know. But like we're in this technological advancement. Like you're right. What you're saying is exactly right, Paul. It does move fast.
I know.
But when you have that perspective that I have from, well, hell, me and Bobby selling tube TVs in 1995, at an electronics store, I have that perspective of things are moving a lot faster than they used to. And that's the other thing. Let's say I invest $3,000 in a forward-facing sonar. How soon is that going to be obsolete?
I don't think it's going to be obsolete for a while, man. I think you got a ways to go before forward-facing sonar becomes obsolete.
Hey, that's what people thought about flat-screen tube TVs in 2003.
But
it's a little different, though. But, I will say this about forward-facing sonar in comparison because, using you as an example, somebody that doesn't have forward-facing sonar, that's on the fence about buying it, your thoughts about, what it means for the sport and et cetera. As a person that didn't have forward-facing sonar forever, I mean, I've only had it for maybe a year. I don't even think I've had it a year. It's not a make or break you, man, to be honest. If I'm being realistic, if I'm being like really, really real about it, the kayak space hasn't been taken over by forward-facing sonar. You take Drew Gregory, for instance. This man is fishing out of a paddle kayak with no electronics on it. And he is out here winning with 3 rods, and he's winning national trail events. You know what I mean? He's won Bassmaster events. He's won Hobie BOS BOS events with literally knowledge. The thing about it is that those of us that are anglers, that are true anglers, that actually are growing and building our skill set in this sport, we know that fish are predictable beings. We know that. We know where fish are going to hang out. We know what high percentage areas are. The only advantage that forward-facing sonar gives you is the ability to just see the fish and see that there are fish there.
See,
forward-facing sonar gives you the ability to fish more efficiently. You know, that
I'm actually going to disagree with that, Brandon. Over the past 2 years, what I've been getting from some of the anglers that I frequent with up in the Northeast is that they are learning new things about bass behavior because of this forward-facing sonar.
100%, 1,000%.
So we're finding fish, you know, like I brought this up on the show, and I was in this tournament and I got slaughtered in it last year, but I faced an angler that was offshore by himself in a deep lake, catching 19 to 20 inch largemouth in a cold water lake. They were suspending 40 feet down just above the thermocline, chasing smelt. Yep. He was looking for balls of smelt, and he would drop a drop shot down to him, but he saw those fish and stopped, which with
it would never happen in any other scenario.
Traditional sonar, we wouldn't have seen that.
Absolutely.
So that's amazing.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you on that. There are 100% fish that are being caught in today's day and age in fishing. There are fish that are being caught right now with forward-facing sonar that have never been caught before.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a fact. There's no denying that. But again, with the whole entire aspect of this is that, you know, fishing is a giant game of luck. You know, when you really, really boil it down to the reality of what fishing is. Fishing is, you know, one part skill, you know, and the rest of it is just sheer luck. I mean, you're trying to make the right cast at the right time at the right target, and hope that the right fish is at the end of that ready to eat that.
Yeah.
And, you know, forward-facing sonar gives you the ability to see that there are fish on that target. You know, sure, you know, you could go out and you could make 2,000 casts at the same brush pile, you know, all day long with no electronics, and there might be a fish on it, there might not be one there, you know, but, you know, your intuition says that there, you know, I've scanned this with my down scan and my side imaging. I know there's a brush pile here. My down scan shows that there's a brush pile here. My sonar, my 2D sonar is showing that there is fish or bait in the area. There should be a fish on this brush pile. You sit there and make 2,000 casts at that. You just wasted 2 hours of your day fishing this brush pile and didn't get a single bite on it because there isn't actually a fish sitting on it. That fish is actually sitting 20 yards off that brush pile out here suspended in 20 feet of water, whereas you've been casting this brush pile. Well, forward-facing sonar is going to give you the ability to scan over that and see, well, there's actually not a fish on that, but, oh, actually that fish is actually sitting 20 yards just past it. Let me cast out there and see what that fish does. So, you know, forward-facing sonar does give you the ability, in my opinion, to fish more efficiently. That's what I've used it for. It's not necessarily a tool for me to go out and actually catch fish with. Sure, I'm using it to catch fish, but there's a severe learning curve with forward-facing sonar. This is not something that you just plug in and all of a sudden you become KVD.
Ain't no magic thing.
And I think a lot of people have that mindset and mentality behind it, is that, you know, oh, as soon as you got live scope, so yeah, you're just going to catch all the fish. Like, nah, bro, I'm still out here trying to get these fish to eat just as much as you are. The only difference is that I know it's a fish on that, whereas you don't. So those 15 trees that we just rolled past, there was only a fish on 3 of them. You know, so instead of me taking, you know, 8 hours of a tournament and flipping every single one of them trees, you know, every single side of that bush and every single side of that tree for 8 hours, going down the line, all 15 of those trees, and then potentially only catching one fish off of one of them throughout the tournament, I don't have to do that anymore. I can just roll through. I can scan. I see there's trees here. Let me scan this and see if there's fish in the area or if there's a fish sitting on any of theirs. There's not. I'm moving on. But again, you know, there's this mindset from a lot of people that, because, you know, for one, forward-facing sonar is expensive. And I think a lot of people that have the most gripes and complaints about forward-facing sonar are the people that don't actually have it. And whether that's because they can't afford it, or whether that's because it's just something that they just haven't purchased yet, or something that they just don't want. But I genuinely believe, you know, this is just my personal opinion. Again, and this is not a knock on anybody that doesn't have it or anybody that does have it, because I do have it. But it's not even something that I use all the time. It's not, forward-facing sonar is not even something that I even have turned on my kayak all the time. But I implore people that are skeptical about forward-facing sonar to actually go out with somebody that has it and try it. Go out on the water and actually put some time in with it, and you will find out very, very quickly how much of a learning curve actually comes with that stuff, you will be humbled quite quickly and realize that the average person, average owner that has forward-facing sonar has absolutely no idea how to use it in the first place.
Yeah.
So, you can't take into account or compare professional fishermen, your Brandon Poliniks, your Scott Martins and all these other guys out here that are running around, John Cox and all those other guys that are running around forward-facing sonar in the pro circuit that are using this stuff. You can't compare the average fisherman to one of those guys. Those people, those dudes are paid to get familiar with that product. They are paid to spend countless hours on the water.
It's their job.
It's their job to know every in and out of that, to learn everything about that piece of equipment so that when they go out on the water, they can find fish. And people are like, oh, they need to ban forward-facing sonar and pro fishing. And I can understand why people's mindset is that they want to ban it, because it's boring or in their mindset, it's boring to watch somebody sitting and staring at a screen all day catching fish offshore. Well, the truth and reality of it is it's boring to watch people fish anyway.
And yes. That's the whole, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're looking at a screen for forward-facing sonar, they're looking down at their side imaging and down imaging, whatever it may be. Watching someone fish is boring anyway.
The only thing that's not boring about watching someone else fish is them catching fish.
Exactly. So if you take away forward-facing sonar, because there is 100% absolutely more fish caught with forward-facing sonar than there ever has been in the history of bass fishing. If you take that away, sure, people are arguing is, oh, you're a professional fisherman, you shouldn't need forward-facing sonar to catch fish. You're right, they don't need it,
but they can still whoop your ass catching fish in the week.
They'll fish you under the table in a heartbeat. But the reality of it is whenever you think about the aspect of live professional fishing being watched and consumed on television, streaming, and whatever that may be, no one is going to watch that if people are not catching fish. Period.
That's right.
Nobody wants to watch somebody sit out there and make 2,000 casts at the same brush pile for 3 hours and not pull anything off of it. Nobody is going to watch that. You think about the evolution of the human attention span over the last decade. Just think about, social media as a whole. Think about where we are with social media right now. TikTok and these 15-second video clips of people doing mindless stupidness. Think about this stuff. Think about the evolution of the human attention span. You think a person wants to sit and watch Brandon Polinick make 1,000,001 casts at 2 targets all day long and not catch any fish? Absolutely not. Nobody wants to see that. People watch professional fishing because they want to see people catch fish. Because that's what pros are there to do. They're there to catch fish. They're out there to cash a check.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think where I'm coming from is one of the biggest appeals to the fishing crowd, to this huge burgeoning growing sport that we're in of kayak fishing, is that you don't need to buy a $30,000 bass boat. You don't need to buy a trailer. You don't need to buy insurance for both. You don't need to keep gassing it up. So you've got this kayak, and then you're able to actually outfit it the way you want for a reasonable amount of money. But now you're coming in with one piece of electronics that we're seeing dividends on in the kayak trails. All right. For at least up in my area, we are definitely seeing the impact of it. And that entry level kayaker that's looking to start to compete, I agree with you. It's possible. There are people out there that go out and paddle kayaks and minimal electronics and whoop ass, but they are in the minority. So now you're looking at,
in the minority.
Yeah, you're looking at, well, now I've just got to double my price because I've got a $2,500 pedal kayak, name your brand, that seems to be around a decent price for one. And now I've got to double that and go $3,000 on a Garmin unit. And it just, I'm worried, as I direct 1, 2, 3. What am I directing now, Paul? 4 tournament trails, 3 or 4. I can't even think of this. 3. I'm directing 3 tournament trails at this time. And we got a lot of our members in the local trail to fish a regional trail, and they saw live scope in action and a lot of anglers at a KBF event in the spring. and a lot of them didn't go back because they saw what it did. They
No,
saw that, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm worried. I'm not saying ban it at all. I agree. Like, it's there. We're not that's, you know, that ship has sailed. It's out of the box. But like, is it going to hurt those anglers that, you know, now look at, well, if that guy's got live scope, this is just a money grab. And that's the feeling I've been getting from those inexperienced anglers that are dipping their toes in the water of competitive fishing for the first time. Well, I just really begged my wife or girlfriend to buy this boat. Now I've got to double that. I mean, that's just where, you know, especially the way the economy's been the past few years, it's painful.
I think a lot of people have to look at it through a different lens, man. The reality of it is with experience comes success. And I think where a lot of people get so lost and caught up in this is that they think that they have to spend all this money to be successful. You know, they have to, you have to have the latest and greatest of everything to be successful. And the reality of it is that you don't, you know, but you should invest in your success. If you believe that investing in forward-facing sonar is going to improve your angler skill set, then absolutely invest in it. But at the same time, if you're going to invest in it, also take the time to learn how to use it and how to use it effectively and efficiently so that you can go out here and put it to work and make money with it. If that's what your goal is in the end, is to go out here, fish tournaments, win tournaments, and, you know, be the best angler you can possibly be using forward-facing sonar, then you absolutely have to put the time in to go do it. Forward-facing sonar is not something that you can just go buy, throw on your kayak and use it every other weekend, you know, for, you know, an hour and think that it's gonna put fish in the boat, because the reality of it is it's not. You know, you have to take that time out to go and put that work in with that product.
All of us with experience in one way or another with competitive fishing or angling and realizing the scene, we get that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the new coming angler, like,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I heard it 2 weeks ago.
It takes us that are experienced in this space to let those new anglers know that you don't need all of this stuff.
Yeah, and
to come out here and be successful. And that's where I think a lot of people that are in this space, again, going back to what I said before, is people forget why they started doing this in the first place. You know, they forget why, you know, they got into fishing, or why, you know, they want to be, you know, and again, you know, everybody doesn't have to be a content creator or, you know, the next, you know, Gary Vee or whatever you want to call it, you know, but again, growing the sport for the right reasons, you know, giving people those gems when they need those gems, you know, giving people that knowledge when it's necessary to say, hey, we got these new anglers that are coming out here. You know, they're they see a lot of us out here running around with this forward-facing sonar. They see us running around these $5,000 kayaks. They're pulling up in their, you know, Pelican, you know, 120 or, you know, Ascend FS, you know, 10T, 128T, whatever.
Two taped up shards of an Ascend kayak.
It is intimidating. It is 100% intimidating. Yeah. But the reality of it is that that's just the way it is, man. That's fishing. You got to think about there's pros out here that are on the, you know, doing the BFLs and the qualifiers and things like that don't have a quarter of the stuff that Brian Latimer's running around with on his boat. You know, they don't have a third of the stuff that Jacob Wheeler is running around with on his boat. You know, and it's like, but you got guys that, you know, you just have to understand that I'm going to go out here and I'm going to fish the way that I know how to fish, and I'm going to make the best of it, because at the real baseline of this is that you should be having fun doing any of this.
Yeah.
And if you're not having fun, then there's no point in doing it, really. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's like, fishing is fun for me. Tournament fishing is fun for me. Sure, it'd be awesome to cash a check. Dude, I haven't cut a check in a single tournament that I fished in 2 years. I have not cut a single check. Right now, I qualified for the championship that I'll be fishing next month. I think I'm sitting like 29th in AOI, you know, and this is only my second year of tournament fishing. And, you know, I mean, for me, that's exactly, for me, that's a huge accomplishment for me, you know, a personal accomplishment. But at the same time, I'm having a blast doing it. You know, if I wasn't having, because I've been to some of these tournaments, dude, and I have literally not had a good time. And I called Charlie on the way home, and I'm like, dude, I'm done fishing tournaments. I was like, I'm never fishing another tournament.
Everything's for sale. You get back to the ramp, you load
I'm not
it up,
selling it because I'm still fishing regardless of the tournament.
I'm being
stuff,
facetious, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but it's like, dude, Charlie will tell you, like, I have called him literally 2 seconds from an atom bomb exploding, bro. Like, I'm done with this tournament stuff because this is BS, like whatever, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, I take some time, I sit back and I think about it, and I end up going right back into it, man. And I have a lot of fun doing it. I only fish tournaments, you know, for the first half of the year, and I'm fishing one a month basically. But I'm having fun. I'm actually enjoying the fishing that I'm doing. I'm not going out there with the mindset of I'm going to win this tournament. Obviously, I'm going out there to try to win, but my goal is to go out there and put 5 fish in the boat on a brand new lake that I've never been to, whatever it may be. If I've been to it one time, if I've never been to it, if I've been to it 20 times, I want to go out here every time I get on the water. I want to put 5 fish in the boat, whether that's the 5 right fish or just 5 fish in general. I want to get 5 scoreable bass on my board and on the board in this tournament. That's all I care about. And if I can do that in the tournament, dude, I'm perfectly happy.
And that
That's why I think a lot of people just need to focus their energy on. Like, don't worry about the electronics or what everybody else is doing or what everybody else has on their boat. When you pull up to the tournament, your mindset should be, I want to go out here and I want to put 5 fish in the boat.
You're echoing everything I've been preaching for years. The thing I think that people don't realize is they're worried too much about other people's stuff, and they've got to worry. They've got to figure out their own strengths and weaknesses. When I tell people, hey man, like in particular, I try to foster anytime that we have tournaments, anybody that's in my trails, I tell them this is so military, but you're going to laugh at this. We do obviously a captain's briefing or a captain's meeting before the tournament. Yep. I'm sure you've seen a ton of those. But we have a second part to it. We have a newcomers briefing. And I tell them like, hey, welcome. We make sure that we go out and grab a bite to eat after we're all done. This is kind of like, playing cards with your buddies. You don't know who's going to win. There's some money on the line. We're out here to have fun, but you've got to realize this is a small pond with some big fish in it. You know what I mean? You're not just going up against, like, I don't know everybody's background. I don't know if they've been out on a pontoon boat with their brother-in-law and they caught a 2-pound bass last summer. And their brother-in-law said, man, you ought to fish tournaments. And they have a couple beers. And the next thing you know, he's there.
I am going to do that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like it's uncommon. And then they come into a tournament trail that, we funnel in a number of different directions, and it's not the entry level tournament that they think they're just going to go in and roll up like they fish on their private pond or having a couple beers with their brother-in-laws in the pontoon. Yeah. Now they're up against guys who are fishing 3 to 4 days a week. And this is on a local level. Yeah. But yeah, I try to make sure that when I sit down and I tell someone, hey, look, you've got to find your strengths and weaknesses. I'll say, I use a creature bait. I'm not telling you which one to use because I can tell Paul, like, hey, Paul, I'm using this creature bait, and he'll make a face and go, I use this exact same shape, but it's a different brand. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I just say something broad because there's no way I could tell somebody exactly what I'm using and then go out and use the exact same thing, and it's not going to catch them fish. But then they make one tweak that I wouldn't do, and all of a sudden they're catching fish. So I just keep it broad, but I try to pass that information along and say, here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm doing it. Go on your own path and try to figure out your strengths. And it just, when you get to a certain level, though, it just adds that level of intimidation where this guy can now see fish real time. And again, I'm not up for banning it. I'm actually considering getting it. I have to. And I've been relatively outspoken over the past year about it because I've had my ass whipped in tournaments where I've wasted those 8 hours. Last weekend's a perfect example. I burned 2 days pre-fishing and then the 8 hours in the tournament, and I didn't even fill a bag.
Bro, but I zeroed in a tournament literally a month and a half ago that I caught fish in practice. I zeroed in the tournament using active target.
Yeah. I'm
talking about, I didn't catch a single, bro. I did not only did I not catch a scoreable fish, I didn't catch a single fish the entire tournament. Like, and that's part of the game, you know what I'm saying? And it's really, really good that you give that newcomers brief to your tournaments, because that's actually really smart, because it kind of breaks the ice for them. You know, I didn't get a newcomers brief whenever I started fishing tournaments. I literally just dove headfirst into it. It was like, I got the schedule and I went to the first event and I was just like, I'm gonna fish it. And like, dude, it was literally blowing 25-mile-per-hour winds. And it's kind of eerie too, because the tournament starts at like 6 a.m, so it's pitch black out there, and then the wind is ripping. You can't see the waves. It's dark as all get out, and I got to get out here on the water in this little plastic boat and hopefully not die. Yeah, this is my first tournament. And it's like you just do it. You know what I mean? Like I just did it. And I mean I know I'm different from everybody else. I've been through a lot of stuff, military and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm kind of just, I see an objective, I go through it. I don't really care, whatever. But, I know the average person is not like that. But those newcomer briefs, man, that's a really, really big step that I think a lot of tournament directors should think about doing, especially because, dude, there are so many new people that come into tournament fishing, because they want to give it a shot. They see it, they think it's cool, and they want to try it out, and then, they most of the time they end up falling in love with it. But yeah, there are a lot of people that come into it and they see, oh, well, TBFD has got, a $17,000 kayak sitting over there with everything on it, all the bells and whistles. Here I am in this Pelican with nothing on it, but, 2 rods and a freaking catch board. Yeah. Well, the reality of it is that I've just invested in my skill set a little bit more than other people have. But at the same time, this stuff doesn't make me any more better of an angler than it does you, Okay. So, I go out here and zero just as much as you will on that Pelican. It's not with no electronics. It's going to happen. It happens all the time. So, just being able to reiterate that to them and to getting that point across to newcomers that come in this space, anybody that's listening to this, that's considering getting into tournament fishing or anything like that, don't worry about what the next man has on their kayak, because we suck at fishing just as much as you do.
What I would say, to touch on what Shawn said, is you can't catch somebody else's fish.
You can't.
Excellent point.
So it doesn't matter, Shawn might go catch fish off of this point with his creature bait, and I follow up and catch fish off that point with a crankbait.
Yep.
And maybe I throw a creature bait because Shawn said something about creature baits on this point, and I don't catch any fish. And so I'm like, well, let me damn try my crankbait, and I catch fish on it. You can't catch other people's fish. Technology still, you still have to catch the fish, and technology doesn't change that. But this also transcends kayak fishing and boat fishing from a competitive standpoint. When you're in that competitive side, it doesn't matter what you're fishing out of. It doesn't matter what rod and wheel you're using. Sure, sometimes it matters with techniques or something like that. Mm-hmm. But if you can catch fish on a Zebco 33 in a tournament and you win it, you're going to do it. So, I mean, you don't have to have all the bells and whistles to win money, to place good. The bells and whistles make us more efficient. They make us be able to get the fish into the boat quicker, to keep them pinned, to be able to fish a specific technique.
Yep.
But, you don't have to have that stuff to be competitive.
Yep.
In that it transcends in this, we're not, we're outside of just kayak fishing right now. We're talking about competitive fishing, and you see it a lot in both sides. Yeah. I mean, it's the fact of knowing what you're good at, knowing what your fish are that you catch, and focusing in on that. All of these other little things just make us more efficient. They make us more likely to catch the fish and get the fish in the boat to weigh it or measure it. But none of that matters unless you get that fish hooked.
Yeah, man. Don't shortchange your skill set, man. Go out here and do what you know how to do.
Exactly.
That's where I think a lot of people, they get lost in it because again, they see what everybody else is doing, and they forget at the end of the day that they actually know how to fish. Just go out there and do what you know how to do. And do it to the best of your ability. Don't worry about anything else. And you'd be surprised what you can actually accomplish on the water. I was just recently fishing out of the lake, out here that is super pressured. I'm talking about, this is probably Lake Fork of all places.
Yep.
This is probably one of the most pressured lakes in the entire country. This is the most well-known body of water in the entire world. And I literally I couldn't catch a single fish with my electronics turned on. I'm scanning and seeing fish everywhere. I got my active target running. I'm looking at targets and I'm marking fish all over the place, seeing just giant marks here and there, casting at these fish. And I'm literally watching them swim away from my lure. And I couldn't catch a single fish with that stuff on, dude. I turned my electronics off, literally just turned them off. Turned my active target off, turned my graph off, and I just start fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I start leaning into just giants back to back to back to back. Dude, I caught 2 over 7. I caught 2 that were 6.8. I lost 1 that was almost 7 pounds, and it's just, just back to back. I was out there fishing with a buddy of mine that had never been to Lake Fork in his entire life. He's out there on a kayak for like his first or second time even being on a kayak. He caught 3 bass. His biggest was almost 7 pounds. And it's like, sometimes you just stop overthinking things. You know what I'm saying? Just get back to the basics. Remember to keep things simple and don't worry about anything else that's going on around you. Just fish. Just do what you know how to do. Like I know how to go out and fish, you know, and that's what I did. I just turned the electronics off. I knew that there's fish in the area. I knew that there should be fish in this stuff that I'm fishing. So it's like, I'm just going to fish, and whatever happens is what's going to happen. And sure enough, I put a limit in the boat. I caught a big old catfish, 4 white bass, a bluegill, a drum, and I put 5 bass in the boat.
Damn, that's a good day, right? That's hey, if you're from the south, you feeding half the neighborhood off of that.
Absolutely.
Last year, to build on what you just said, Paul, I'm sorry to interrupt, Brandon. I'm going to jump back at that. But, Paul, when you said, I can't catch fish that aren't mine, did you hear us say that on the show a couple weeks ago? Because I brought that up. Because
I've always said that. I've always said that because, you know, I talk to people a lot in my fishing journey. I talk to people a lot, and that's how I start to learn new techniques. But like I'll get out there and they tell me what to do, and I get out there and it doesn't feel right. I'm not getting the bites, but then I'm like, well, let me try this. You know, let's just say a Carolina rig. I grew up throwing a Carolina rig. So somebody's talking about throwing, I don't know, you know, a shaky head or something, and I can't catch fish on. I throw a Carolina rig out there and catch fish on it. So I mean, it's just that's how I always have looked at it. But yes, y'all said it, and I agree with that.
Last fall, the story on this, Brandon, was I have a close friend that's my assistant director for my in-person trail up here in Massachusetts. And we've known each other since we were 4 years old and been fishing for the past, 15, 20 years, really intensely. We went out to Lake Champlain. We threw in at this one ramp. I went right. And I was in about 10, 15 feet of water, throwing a chatterbait. And it was 19-inch smallmouth, 20-inch smallmouth, 19-inch smallmouth. And I called him over. I said, dude, we weren't in a tournament. I said, here's what I'm throwing. Let's get on some smallmouth. He lined up an identical lure, was throwing the identical depth, got nothing. After about 20, 30 minutes, he said, these fish aren't mine. He didn't tell me this. He told me later. These fish aren't mine. There's a weed bed over there. He's more of a largemouth fisherman. He does his thing, switches a lure, goes over to the largemouth area. Largemouth, 19 inches, 18 inches, 7. You know, and he's hitting the largemouth. I move over there. I can't catch a largemouth for the life of me, but I'm laying into 30 and 40-inch northern pike. So it was funny to see that we were mimicking each other and having completely different results in different areas. You know what I mean? Yeah. I agree with it. I just, getting back to the whole circle, the circle around this thing, this whole live scope it's a hot button topic right now. Paul and I talked before the show. We echoed exactly what you just said about efficiency. It'll help clear water. I mean, I covered a lot of acreage on Saturday. I covered a lot, and I pulled up 4 smallmouth. Whereas I would not have spent that much time had I had that tool in my toolbox. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I truly believe that. Would it have helped me catch those fish? No, but it would have helped me find them. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And that's what I use fish finders for. My graphs, I don't stop when I see 6 fish sitting on a stump, but I'm looking for more of those stumps in that depth around. You know what I mean? I'm looking for that pattern. I always say 1 fish is a fish, 2 fish is a pattern. If I can find that same scenario again, I'm looking for that in my graphs. I'm not looking and turning around and hitting every fish I see. But that live scope helps me do that a lot quicker, I believe. And yeah, it's going to take me a little while to learn. I get that. I've already started. I mean, I'm on bass boats using it with buddies of mine, but I don't know. I just see that at certain lakes, it can make a difference.
Absolutely, 1,000%. It can definitely improve your catch ratio on certain bodies.
Certain scenarios. I don't necessarily think it's lakes. I think it's the scenario within the day that you're fishing is what it comes down to because of. It's definitely a killer tool when it comes to catching suspended bass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. These gigantic, the very few gigantic deep lakes that we have, where they're so heavily used by pleasure boaters. Like the shallows are a wave pool, and when they're on top of that, I don't know how you guys are in the South, but I always look at shallow, clear water, like crystal clear water. The fish back off of that,
Oh yeah, they're not going to be in that stuff.
Yeah, they're just smarter. They know they're going to get whacked by an osprey. You know what I mean? They're in deep water. And when you've got this huge, vast expanse of water to cover, and you only maybe have a couple days. I know some guys, like we were talking about, the professionals that can get out there and they have the time to pre-fish for 5 or 6 days, and they can really use that live scope as a tool and really hone in over possibly hundreds of acres of water in a week. And I'm coming in there on Friday like, hey, I got a graph. I could check out 20 acres, and I still have no idea what's going on in that 20 acres. I've just donated my money for that tournament, and some of these things aren't cheap. I try to be as efficient as I can with my money because I can't be as efficient as I can with my scanning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's another key to that too. So when you talk about the size of a body of water that you're looking at fishing, I do a lot of map study before I go to lakes because, again, I work a full-time corporate job. I don't get to go out and do 2-3 days of pre-fishing before a kayak tournament, whatever it may be. This year specifically, I'm getting at least one practice day in. I'm typically driving down the day before practice. I'm taking a PTO day, so I get that Friday to practice, and then I'm fishing the tournament Saturday morning, and then coming back home either directly after the tournament or Sunday morning.
Yep.
But I do a ton of map study, in the weeks prior to, fishing a tournament. Google Earth is an amazing tool for doing this, and then you couple that with Navionics where you get the topography of the lake and things like that, changing the time frame on Google Earth to show you if there was a drought where water's lower, where it exposes certain things in the water and things like that. It's a great tool for doing this, and especially down here where we have these giant bodies of water. I mean, you're talking, 26, 30, 40,000 acre plus lakes. This is a lot of water to cover, and it's near impossible to do so in a kayak.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so I've really learned to break these bodies of water down into the rule of thirds. You break the lake down into 3 equal parts, and then you determine how big that space is. And if that space is still huge and just too much water to cover, you break that down into 3 more parts. So you pick one of those first 3 chunks and say, I'm going to focus my attention on this chunk right here. This chunk is still really big, so let me break this down into 3 more parts. And you're going to pick one of those 3 chunks, and then from there, I just focus in on that one area of the lake. I'm doing a ton of map study, topography stuff on Navionics, looking at the layout of this lake, what it looks like, what's potentially in the area around this, and I'm marking and dropping waypoints on Google Earth. And I export all that data and I import that into my graph. And then on practice day, I actually go out there and I look at all the stuff that I marked and see if what I saw on Google Earth is actually there.
Hey, Brandon, real quick, I got a question. So when you're breaking down the bodies of water into your rule of thirds, are you prioritizing the areas where that fit the type of fishing that you're comfortable with and like to do? Are you prioritizing those areas? Or you're prioritizing it by where the fish should be?
It's a little bit of both. And then a lot of it also kind of plays on weather. So if I know it's going to be windy or, ridiculous, just wild west out there, just crazy, I'm also focusing on areas that are going to provide a little bit of protection if it's possible. Because sometimes you're not going to get any protection from the wind, and especially whenever you think about, just how fish move and migrate, especially when you consider whenever it is windy, obviously wind creates current pushes bait, fish follow bait. So, a lot of times you are fishing in the roughest part of the wind. You're fishing against windblown banks or points. So you're out in the elements. So I'm looking for areas, that, the weather is going to play into. So if there's like a bunch of main lake points that are, that are southeast and the wind is coming northwest, I know that those points are going to be blown, with wind. So I know that bait's going to be getting pushed towards those points. So I'm going to focus in on that area around there. If it's not going to be crazy windy or weather is going to be kind of fine, it's kind of a anywhere kind of thing for me. Like I know that if it's going to be hot as all get out, fish are going to typically be offshore. So I'm going to try to find some deeper pockets in the lake. I'm using the navionics to find those deeper pools or those deep creek channels or riverbeds or whatever it may be that are running through the lake where I know these are going to be offshore staging areas. And I'm going to focus in on those parts, but also those parts are going to have shallow water staging areas too that are going to have quick access to deep water where there's going to be bait fish. There's going to be good ambush areas. There's going to be timber or there's rock ledges or there's grass or things like that where these fish could stage up and be holding. So it kind of gives me a best of both worlds type scenario if I decide to start off shallow or start off offshore and I'm not really finding the fish that I'm looking for, I can pull up in some shallower water and look for fish there. But at the same time, I'm also, that's like my plan A and B, but my plan C is like I'll kind of scout out another area as well that I can always just jump to if need be. So, because you take into account like Sam Rayburn, which is 105,000 acres. This is a big lake, man. This is, I'm talking a monstrous lake. You're breaking your thirds down into thirds and into thirds and into thirds again. Because dude, the lake is just so big. But there's a lot of high percentage areas out there. And then you take another lake out here, Toledo Bend, which is, 128,000 acres. It's just, and dude, fishing that lake you might as well be in the ocean. Dude, I fished that lake earlier this year and it was 35 mile per hour winds. It was 8-foot rollers out there, dude. And I'm out there getting it, bro. Like I'm talking about, I'm on the south end of the lake. I'm like one of maybe 2 boats that are even on this side of the lake. And it's just crazy out there. Like the video is on my YouTube channel, dude. It's probably one of my most viewed videos. Like I ended up having to get off the water because it was just so bad. I had caught 4 fish before I decided to get off the water at literally like 12 o'clock.
Damn.
And because I was just like, I can't, like I went up into this cove, and these coves are huge, and the wind is just ripping. And like I'm fishing and fishing and fishing and fishing and fishing. I fished this area in practice, so I came back down there. I found a couple of the fish that I saw in practice, and then I went up into this shallow pocket just to kind of get out of the wind a little bit. And I'm fishing in there, just not finding any fish in there. So I'm like, I'm gonna go back out and cut back around this this point and see if I can find some fish over here. Dude, I go to try to come out of this cove, dude, and I'm literally kicking as hard as I possibly can, and my boat is going backwards. I'm literally not moving. And dude, it is the only time in my almost 5 years of being on a kayak, dude, that I have ever felt unnerved in a kayak. That I was a little bit afraid. And I literally say this out loud. I was like, this is not going to work. I was like, I got to get off the water. I was like, I'm not moving. Like this is just too dangerous. I can't do anything with this. And I turn around and like, again, tournaments, they're round robins. You got to launch at a public ramp. I'm 1.5 miles from where I launched my boat at the ramp. I literally had to pull up in some dude's yard at his home boat ramp. And dude, I go to step out of the boat and some rogue wave comes through, bro, and it literally just throws me into the lake, dude. And the water is like 40 degrees.
Yeah.
It's cold as all get out. Like I cut my hand up and my leg up, and my bibs full up with water. My boots are completely full of water. Like, dude, I'm like, it's just crazy. It's all bad. My boat comes flying over the top of me. I'm trying to get back up and get up and get out of the water. Finally, drag my kayak up onto the ramp. And I'm literally just knocking on doors, bro, like people's houses that are right here in this cove. I'm just knocking on doors. Finally get to a house. A guy opens the door, and I was like, "Hey, sorry to bother you," but I was like, I fell out my boat down there at the ramp, and I was like, I was wondering if one of you guys would mind giving me a ride back to my truck down at the ramp down there. And they're like, "Are you in like a green colored kayak?" And I was like, yes. He was like, man, we were watching you out our dining room window. You were out here fishing out here. And I was like, yeah. It was like, man. He's like, I saw you. I told my wife, I was like, that dude is crazy. And
there's a video on the internet of that guy going, look at this dumbass out here
I'm telling you, bro.
right now.
Check YouTube later.
Yeah, dude. And he's like, were you catching any? I was like, yeah, I caught 4. He was like, dude, that's unbelievable. He was like, He's like, dude, it's crazy out there right now. I was like, bro, I've never been out on a lake that's been this bad. He's like, dude, it gets pretty bad out here when it's windy because like the lake is just so big and wide open. Like, dude, them waves just get the going, bro, and it literally is like a washing machine out there.
I had to bail out on Mille Lacs last year with the same conditions. First time I fished Mille Lacs, I was in a bay. I launched, and then the minute I got to that main lake, I said, "Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. 15 minutes. I'm out of here."
Yeah, bro. And but he gave me a ride. You know, he's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "I'll give you a ride." He's like, "Where you at? You just at the Fin and Feathers up the road?" I was like, "Yeah." I jumped on the back of his truck and he drove me up there. His wife gave me a towel and everything, and he drove me up there. And I grabbed my truck and came back down to his boat ramp and loaded my boat up. And I went home, man. And I was like, you know, it was crazy too, dude. I was like, I think that was one of the only tournaments that I had not caught a limit in, you know. And I mean, I had been out in some tournaments that were almost just as bad, but just, you know, just not as crazy, you know, with the wind, just because Toledo Bend is just such a big lake. But, you know, I had to break that lake down into smaller chunks, man, to be able to find, you know, viable water that I could fish. Because dude, in practice, I pedaled 16 miles in practice trying to find a viable area to fish for tournament day. Like I had literally marked all these different spots on the lake that I wanted to fish, and they were all pretty much in this one giant arm. But, you know, Google Maps will make you think that arm is pretty small until you like really, really zoom in. And the bass boats are literally the size of a pin tip. And you're like, man, this thing is a lot bigger than I thought it was. And then you actually get out there, bro. I literally put in 16 miles kicking on that lake in practice to find that one stretch of bank that I caught all my fish on. You know, mind you, they were all sitting in 28 feet of water. But, I mean, because, dude, the banks just drop off. Like, I mean, they go from 2 feet to 30 feet like that. You know, and I mean, it's just like, you know, that's just the work that I had to put in. But it's like, you know, that's just what it comes down to is you have to break those big bodies of water down into smaller, manageable chunks, especially when you're on a kayak, because you don't have the luxury of just kicking the motor on and popping in the seat and shooting across the lake, you know, 2 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles to another spot. You know, you gotta find ways to fish effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, making a run in a kayak is 3 miles. Like 2 miles. I mean, I mean, and you think about it, when you're in an area, a lake, making a run for 2 miles might not get you nowhere outside of where you were just fishing and not catching fish.
100%. That position may not change your fishing any at all. And, you know, there's a saying, you know, you don't leave fish to go find fish.
Golden rule, baby. Golden rule.
Unless you do, and they're bigger fish and you win, and that happens every now and again too.
Every now and again. It's rare, but it happens.
I'm so old school. It's funny you say that you load that up in your Navionics and that. I'm still old school enough that I will print up a topo map of whatever section of lake I'm fishing, or the whole lake if it's smaller and up here. And I actually look at what the wind is predicted, and I'll go ahead and I'll take a ruler and my credit card, and I'll draw the lines in and see what structure, vertical structure in particular, I'm looking for, whether it's a point, a weed bed that I know is there, that the wind is going to blow those bait fish into. Yeah. And I always work that first. So, but I like fishing in the wind. I'm insane.
I am too, man. I have a saying that wind is your friend, you know, and I used to hate the wind in a kayak. When I first got started in kayak fishing, dude, I despise windy days, man. But like now, bro, I don't care if it's rain, sleet, shine, 2 degrees, 10 degrees, 10 million degrees, 200-mile-per-hour winds, bro. I'm out there. Charlie will tell you in a heartbeat, bro. I will send it. I don't care. It could be lightning, thundering. We going fishing because that's whenever the fish are biting.
And Charlie,
the bad days are when the fish are eating.
So you got to come with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Shawn's so old school. It's amazing he even knows how to print anything out on a computer.
That's one of those fancy abacuses, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you said something earlier a while ago, kind of in the middle of this conversation, Brandon, that created the greatest screaming argument between me and Shawn ever, was the luck aspect of fishing. And I don't want to harp on this because I know Shawn's got to get up out of here in a few minutes, but the luck aspect of, I have a very different, and this is maybe something we can touch on another podcast. I have a very different view of luck in fishing than I know Shawn does, and I think you do. But that when you brought that up, the biggest by screaming, it was not even an argument. It was me screaming at Shawn that I agreed with him, and him screaming at me about what he did. Anyway, you'd have to go back and listen to the episode. People have listened. It's still one of our top, I think, 10 episode downloads. Me and Shawn are hollering at each other about luck.
It's painful. It's painful to listen to. I've actually mentally blocked it out. It's wonderful. I don't ever want to get into that conversation again. I don't know what happened.
I was trying to give him a damn compliment and he wouldn't take it because
I still won't.
He's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. See, this conversation, we started this all talking about forward-facing sonar and technology. It morphed into the tournament fishing side of it. And, we have kayak anglers that listen to this. We have regular anglers. We have people that don't know shit about fishing. We have people that fish out of a boat. All this is relevant information for tournament angling, but angling in general. Like when you go out fishing, you want to catch a fish. Mm-hmm. So how do we put ourselves in a position to catch those fish? And that's what fishing comes down to. Now we're talking about from the tournament side where we've got some money invested in it and a lot of time. But that's the essence of fishing is catching fish. That's what we all want to do when we go out on the water is catch fish. And it's putting in that time. And not everybody has that time, right? You hear this, like this guy, I have 7 hours on a Saturday, twice a month to go out and fish. I can't go pre-fish. I can't go practice. I can't do that. But putting some time in and doing the map study, looking at fishing reports, looking at talking to your buddies that are fishing. Like these are all things that you can do that don't require you to burn fuel, to take time away that you don't have to go pre-fish. Like these are all things that you can do to give you a better percentage chance of catching those fish. 100%. And like this whole conversation over the last 20 minutes has been really about that. How do you maximize your time out on the water to catch those fish? That's what we go fishing to catch fish. Now, some people go out just to enjoy the water and to be out in nature and shit. But let's be real. When you're in Texas or North Carolina or even here the last month or so up in Shawn's area, when it's 100 degrees outside or 95 degrees outside and it's 11 o'clock and you ain't caught no fish, you ain't enjoying shit with nature. Like, fuck nature, honestly. Nature can go kiss my ass because you're just not enjoying yourself at this point. You're out there to catch fish. That's the first reason people go fishing. If you want to go enjoy nature, you're out there at 6 o'clock and you're off the water at 8. 100%. But, these are all things that all of us as anglers from the bank, from a boat, from a kayak, from anywhere can do to increase that percentage so we can have that good time and do what we all love to do. That's fish and catch fish.
100%, man. I agree with you on that 1,000%. But even still, I do enjoy, while those days of not catching do absolutely suck. I do look at those days as better than a day that I didn't get on the water. Even if it is me out there struggling and sweating to death, I'm happy with being on the water. That's a big piece of it for me is just being out there on that kayak and being out there in that water, in those elements, and trying to figure it out. Clearing my mind. That escape from the day to day. That the week to week and whatever. All those troubles get left behind when you're out there on that water.
And I didn't serve. Y'all two did, but you hear a lot of veterans talk about how fishing saved them. So many people talk about that, and it's that being out there and kind of the quietness and being away from everything. And it's for anybody that gets out on the water. It's that calming, even though if you saw me out there, I'm not really calm at all, but it's the aspect of being out there and being away from anything that you don't have to think about. Right.
Yeah, man. Fishing honestly for me has been the closest thing to being in the military outside of the military. I mean, dude, this space is filled with so many like-minded individuals, man. It's insane, man. Like how much you have in common with people that you would never think that you'd ever connect with a day in your life. But it's the same way in the military. You come across people that are from all different walks of life, from all different aspects of everything, and they become like your brothers and sisters. Like they become your family. And dude, I have made some of the closest relationships with people that I have ever had my entire life outside of the military in the fishing industry. Like my buddy Charlie, man, he is literally my best friend, man. Like I treat Charlie as if he was one of my Army buddies that I've been to combat with 1,001 times. Our families hang out, you know, our kids hang out, you know, that is my best friend, you know, and I met him through fishing. A lot of my friends just in general that I have are people that I've met from fishing, you know, that just started as a comment on a photo, you know, that I ended up linking up with, and we ended up fishing and we become friends, you know.
It's a very welcoming sport.
1,000%, man. It doesn't matter what your race is, your ethnicity, what your political background is, none of that stuff. It means nothing in this space. And that's what's so awesome about it, is that anybody can enjoy this sport for what it is and go out here and have a good time with people that are here to do the exact same thing. And that's what's important.
Well, we're going to start wrapping this up. We do have the questions. Before we get into that, you mentioned something earlier again that I thought was funny, because I just started doing this on the Tiki-Tac, which is AKA TikTok, the mindless content creation. I started creating TikToks that last about 7 or 8 seconds, and it's of me pumping gas. And it's me opening my door on my truck. It's me putting the truck into gear. And I've got 20 in my drafts right now, me doing what I call everyday stupid shit, like putting on your shoes and stuff like that. It's 7 seconds. You know what? People watch that 7 seconds and they watch it 2 or 3 times because, like, what the hell did I miss? You didn't miss shit. It's just me putting my shoes on. So the mindless content, and this kind of goes back to the attention span of where we are right now, which you're alluding to with catching fish, right? If you're catching a lot of fish, people will typically stay tuned in. But yeah, on the content creation side, I've started doing stupid stuff like that. But you know, it's interesting, and I enjoy it because it's fun. But it's also, I never run out of it. It's like everyday stuff. So this is the end of Bass and Brews. Coming up, these are our questions, what we're known for. It's the only scripted part of this shitty little podcast. And I'll tell you, these questions have ruined careers of a couple people, and a couple other people they've pumped up. But we're going to ask a question, there's no thinking. It's like, we'll ask a question, you'll get it, and it's one or the other. There ain't no maybe ifs, ands, or buts. And if we don't agree with it, we're going to chastise you. But here we go. You ready for these questions, Brandon?
Let's go.
All right, dude. Crocs or flops?
I don't wear either of them.
You barefoot?
No, I definitely don't go barefoot.
No.
Bro, I'm covered from head to toe, man, when I go out in the... Bro, skin cancer is no joke, bro. I'm not trying to get skin cancer.
But my brother-in-law is a dermatologist, and my grandma has skin cancer. I've had look... Now I lather down. I look like Mikey Balls on the water now. I look like a ghost lathering down.
Dude, I don't even know where you get that white powdery sunscreen from. Like, where does he even buy that stuff?
Mikey must have bought stock in zinc oxide back in the mid to early 90s, and that's what he's still using. Because when we had him on, I was like, dude. Look, I love what you do for promoting healthy skin in the sun, but damn it, how do you got to rub that shit in, Mikey? Come on now,
you, bro. But if I had to choose one,
you gotta choose one.
If I had to choose one, I'd probably go with Crocs. They offer a little bit of coverage, and they got the strap on the back, so I don't have to worry about them sliding off my feet. They got that 4-wheel drive.
Well, unless your dog chews them off like mine, and he neutered my damn Crocs.
Yeah, man. Charlie wears flip-flops a lot on the water. That's his thing. If he's not wearing because I wear my NRS boundary boots or my backwater shoes. And but Charlie, most of the time he's wearing flip-flops, especially in the summer. But me, I'm covered, man. I don't really get hot when it comes to the sun protection stuff. So I'm wearing long sleeves, pants, and my water shoes or my boundary boots. So
well, I'm barefoot. The only reason I got Crocs in my boat is so I can take my kayak from the truck to the launch, and from the launch to the truck, and I don't get a hook in my foot at the launch. Other than that, it can be 100 degrees outside, or it can be 20 degrees outside, and you can ask anybody I fish with. them Crocs come off, and I'm barefoot in the boat the whole time.
Man, you're gonna get a hook in your foot, bro. I'm telling you, man.
Barefoot with sun bum. So at this point, I eat sun bum.
No, man. I'm just too worried about getting stuck, man. I think that's a big thing for me. Is I just don't want to get a hook in my foot. Like I had a fish go berserk in my hand and literally just like headbutt my thigh with 6 trebles like a few months ago, bro. Fishing almost 5 years, never been hooked, and finally got a DT6 embedded into my thigh, and the fish is literally hanging off my leg. And dude, I mean, it's just all bad, bro. Like, I mean, every time the fish breathes, it's just pain throbbing through my leg. I just couldn't imagine that in my foot, and I think that's just where it comes from. Is hooks are sharp, and I just don't want them in my feet.
I'm very careful. I'll say this: I'm very careful because if I ever get hooked enough that like I got to go get it taken out at the emergency room, or somebody's got to yank it out with some thread. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. If that shit ever happens to me, there's a good chance that I'm gonna black out for a second or two, and that's another reason my fat ass wears my damn life jacket, because I can't float in the water. I sink. Yeah. But yeah, I'm very careful with that. All right, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
That's my wife's thing, man. I'm not a fan of it.
I like that. I like
good
that.
Answer.
You know what? If somebody else buys it, I will eat the shit out of it. Like
I'll eat it,
tomorrow.
but I'm definitely not ordering it. Yeah, I'm not ordering it. My wife, that's my wife's thing. My wife loves pineapple on pizza, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, if I want to get an extra topping, I'm going to get like extra pepperonis.
Yep, bacon.
Bacon.
Not no Canadian bacon either. We don't need
no
Canadian
bacon. I need the regular stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, American bacon.
Yeah. I had to make sure, Shawn, you're up there around them Canadians, so I didn't know if maybe you like.
Yeah, we have Canadian bacon up here too. We call it ham.
Yes, exactly.
That's all it is.
Yeah, it is
thinly sliced ham.
Yeah, subpar ham.
And it goes
it's not
on
even country ham.
And it goes on sandwiches, not on pizzas.
There we go. You gonna spend more on a rod or a reel, Brandon?
I'm cheap, man, when it comes to gear. I would much rather spend the money on the rod versus the reel.
Okay. Nice.
For me, I mean, the reels, they're all going to pretty much do the same thing. I prefer a high gear ratio reel over like a slower one, just simply because you can always slow down. It's definitely a lot more work to speed up a really slow reel. Yeah, so dude, I mean, they're all basically the same, in my opinion. I mean, if you're going to spend the money on a good quality rod. Versus
you obviously don't have ADHD, because for folks that like me that have that, we cannot slow down ever. Also, if y'all want to go hear a good back and forth, go listen to Armando, good friend of the show, on Bass Kayak and Beers. I was on there a couple weeks ago. It dropped, I think today. Yeah, I think today. Go listen to that. We had some fun times, and me and Armando got into it some. In a 3-hour session, Brandon, you're going to catch 5 2-pounders or 1 7-pounder.
In 3 hours?
You got 3 hours tomorrow morning to go fish. You want to catch 1 7-pounder, or you're going to be happy with 5 2-pounders?
I'd be happy with any fish, to be honest.
No, Bo, you got to pick one, Brandon.
I'll take the 5. I'd be happy with the 5.
Okay.
I'd love to catch 1 7-pounder, but it just depends on how bad of a grinder it is. But I think in most cases, I prefer just to catch some fish.
I got you. There you go. Hey, I can agree with that all day long. All right. Wacky rig or Texas rig?
Texas rig. Wacky rig is just a little bit too slow for me. I'll throw it. Don't get me wrong. And it absolutely flat out catches fish. But it's just a tad bit too slow.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, next time you come up north of the Mason-Dixon, you let me know. I'll meet you, because we got fish together. I'm liking you. We got no pineapple on pizza. We ain't throwing no friggin' wacky rigs. I like this. We're going to
Are you pegging your Texas rig, or are you letting that weight be free?
I do both. Most of the time I peg it, though. But I do on occasion. It depends on what I'm throwing on the rig. If I'm throwing a worm, definitely peg. If I'm throwing like a creature bait or something like that, I'll let it float.
Okay. All right. Alex Rudd. Overrated or underrated?
I honestly don't watch a lot of A-Rudd, man. I'll be straight up honest with you. I don't.
So overrated.
I won't say he's overrated or underrated because I don't watch a lot. I don't really watch a lot of his stuff.
Alex, the buddy of ours. Now you got to say overrated or underrated. We unlike his show, there ain't no adequately rated. It's one or the other.
No, I mean he's got a beard, so I'm a bearded gent myself, so I won't call him overrated. I'll say he's underrated because he's a bearded gent. I'll give him that. Alex is a good dude. I don't watch a ton of his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most YouTubers don't watch a lot of fishing YouTube.
I watch a lot of fishing YouTube. It's just I'm really specific on the people that I like, dude. I'll be honest with you, man. My boy Greg Blanchard, dude. I watch a ton of his stuff. That's really who a lot of his stuff, whose fishing content I consume a lot of. Yeah. And then outside of him, like I watch a lot of like storytelling type YouTube. So Wildfly, like I love fly fishing as well. So Wildfly, actually, those boys just dropped a new one, the Sailboat Diaries, bro. If y'all have not checked that out, if you want to see some epic saltwater content, like just dumb, check that out. It's absolutely killer.
I allude a lot to people catching 1 or 2 fish in a 20 or 30-minute video, and I sit there and watch every second of it. And that is directed straight towards Greg Blanchard. Like I will watch all of his videos because he tells us he's engaging the whole time. Yeah. Engaging the whole time. Great.
And he does the same thing that we do. He tells tells his story with the good and the bad. He shows the bad days on the water. He shows the great days on the water. He is kind of the epitome of what fishing is when it comes to creating content. And he does it so simply too. Like he's not using a bunch of crazy camera gear. He doesn't have an external shooter or anything like that. He's just using a couple GoPros. Just keeping it simple, man.
He had
that's what I love about his stuff, man. What he does is great with what he has, and it's killer content, man.
It's quit using a drone after he got turned in and got scared by the FAA.
Yeah, well, he's out there in California. They don't play around.
But he does catch big fish, which is one of the 3 things I say you got to do to be a good YouTuber in general. All right, slow jams or hype music.
I listen to literally everything. I know that I got to pick one or the other. There's not a genre of music that I don't listen to. I literally listen to everything, and I'm a big fan of music. I used to produce music, so that's a big reason why I listen to everything and enjoy everything. But if I had to pick, I'd go with hype. Because I'm a pretty hype person. I like stuff that kind of gets me moving. So I'd go with hype music, and but I enjoy a slow jam too. I like old school music, so I like old school slow jams.
So
examples.
I mean, like I like soul music, like those types of slow jams. Obviously like stuff that we grew up on in the 90s and stuff like that are good as well. But
yeah. See, Shawn was already like 50 years old in the 90s, so we're talking about 1930s slow jams.
Not that that's too old, and I don't even really think a lot of that stuff was even really considered slow jam back then. I don't even think most of that stuff was even considered a jam back then.
No. Well, look, Shawn's a music head. You and him can talk about this because we don't have time for that shit right now, but Shawn is a music head. He's been all over and seen a lot, heard a lot, and done a lot. All right.
Of what?
Music, Shawn.
Oh,
music.
I just listen to it. I don't do it. I suck at it. Oh, go ahead. Ask your questions. Talk about cold cuts.
Look, I bring you on here to keep me on track, and you're doing a shit show job of it.
You didn't tell me I was supposed to do that.
Just in your first go round, you should know better.
All
right, bro. Have you ever eaten beaver?
Me?
No, not you.
The animal?
You're not the guest, Shawn. What the hell's wrong with you?
I'll tell you why.
Brandon said the animal. Yes, the animal. Whatever the beaver is there.
I have not eaten a beaver.
In Texas, man, y'all got beaver down there, don't you?
Bro, we got every animal you can imagine walking down here. Dude, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not keen on anything outside of the normal stuff.
Okay,
beef chicken and steak. Beef, chicken, and pork. I've eaten deer, obviously.
Animal.
I mean, just the normal stuff, man. Like I'm one of those types of people that will literally try anything. I've eaten a turtle before. That to me was not good at all. It was actually really gamey. Was not a fan of that. But
have you ever eaten any? So y'all got big gar down there. Have you ever eaten any of the gar?
I haven't had gar yet, man. So I got a buddy of mine that they make like gar balls and stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, they
boil them and make gar balls and fry them.
Gar balls goes perfect with beaver.
Yeah, I've been wanting to try it. I haven't had an opportunity to try yet. I mean, I got Cajuns in my family, so we pretty much eat, you know, everything, you know, when
Anything
it comes
that
to
moves.
yeah, right. I mean, I'll try anything. You know, I'm not opposed to trying anything. So, I just recently ate Rocky Mountain oysters, smoked Rocky Mountain oysters. They were phenomenal, by the way. And yeah, so that was highly surprising. Yeah, I mean, again, I'll try anything. You know, I've eaten worse. Hell, I've been deployed, so
yeah.
MREs are worse than balls.
I mean, I've eaten stuff cooked by people that you probably wouldn't trust near food. You know, so.
Paul, I got all excited when you asked that because I don't know if you're aware, the past like month or so, my buddy Nelson, who co-directs with me, he got his trapper's license and he got a beaver. We had beaver sliders this weekend. It was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yes, delicious.
Beaver sliders. So you just made them into like burgers.
It was
Is
great.
It like really lean? Like most animals outside of beef and chicken are like really lean anyway.
It's like a slightly fattier venison. Paul, you've had it. Is that a correct statement? It tastes a little bit, there's a hint of venison, but it also depends on what kind of meat you mix it with.
Oh,
well,
it's not like, So
the only way I've ever eaten beaver besides in the bedroom is slow cooked and pulled like pork.
Dude,
like
try it.
So do you just like spatchcock the thing and just smoke the whole thing?
Yeah, you smoke it
and then just pull it all off the bone.
Yep, you pull it, and so it's kind of fatty. It's a darker meat. It's a little tough. So cooking it long because of all the fat and connective tissue and stuff in there, it renders it out real good. Renders out the collagen. So the only way I've ever eaten it has been smoked, like you would a Boston butt, right? And pulled it like that. I've never eaten it like Shawn had it in a ground up form.
It was ground. Yeah, it was ground. Yeah. We cooked. Nelson cooked it up. We put a couple small strips of bacon on it, some cheese, buns, obviously, and then we used a little bit of Nando's Peronaise. If you guys haven't had any Nando's, it goes on everything. Just eat Nando's. It's good shit. Like I might start mainlining that shit. It's incredible.
Well, I'll have to check it out, man. Like I said, I don't know anybody around. I mean, I'm sure there's obviously clearly people around here that eat that stuff and trap and catch and cook. I'll have to get with somebody, man, and figure it out. I mean, again, I'll try anything, man.
Well, hey, if you ever come out to North Carolina way, I don't have any direct sources, but I'm sure I could find one. But we could definitely hook you up.
Be careful
all the time on the water. So I mean,
be careful about walking around asking who's got any beaver. That might not go so well.
You know what? I'm going to create a TikTok next week about that. All right, this one and the next one after this are all about food. So, do you eat largemouth bass?
Absolutely.
Hell yes! Yeah. My man didn't think about it. He said absolutely.
Follow up question: how?
Oh, dude, any way you can think of it. I grilled it, we fried it, we make fish tacos out of it.
Pizzas, fish pizza.
I make pizzas.
Dude, you pizza?
Check this out. Sauceless largemouth bass pizza. You don't put sauce down. You put a little oil, a little garlic, a little red onion, your cheese, fry up the bass with salt and pepper and throw that on there like it's meat, and then put a little bit of Italian seasoning. It's a knockout, and campfire tastes better. Bro,
let's go. That's mostly whenever we do largemouth bass. Is during when we camp and stuff like that. Me and Charlie or just the gang or whatever. I mean, I've also brought it home. My kids eat it, dude. I do phenomenal tasting fish. I don't care what anybody says about it. Dude. It's a game fish, but it is a phenomenal fish to eat, man.
People always say it tastes like mud and this shit right now.
Crazy, like, man.
I will fry up. I will fry up. It's gotta be in nuggets, but I'll fry up bass, crappie, brim, jackfish, and carp. Now the one that you'll pick out first is going to be carp. The second is going to be the jackfish because of the bone. But the other three fish,
you can't tell the difference between them.
Huh?
9 times out of 10, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, 99% of people would never know the difference between a crappie, a brim, and a bass fried up in a nugget. Never.
Yeah, me personally, this is my personal opinion. Bass to me tastes better than crappie. That's my personal opinion. Like
that's a bold statement. I like
it.
I've
had crappie. I've had white bass. You know, I mean, I've had all kinds of different types of fish. You know, I've had brim. I've had I've tons of catfish. Clearly,
catfish is the other one. But
but bass to me, dude, bass in my opinion is probably one of the better tasting freshwater fish that's out there. Man, it's phenomenal. And you know which ones taste even better? Spotted bass.
really?
Spots taste even better.
Yeah,
we had smallmouth pizzas this weekend on Friday, and then Saturday was
smallmouth bass. I know it'll piss a lot of people off, but dude, I'm down for it, man. Like fish tacos is a staple for us when we camp.
Incredible.
It is a staple for us. And bro, I'm telling you, man, I'm glad you're asking, because dude, I tell people all the time, people are like, you eat bass? Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. I got freezer full of bass out there right now.
Yeah, I ain't eating no like 18 inches and above.
No, absolutely not. We
12, 14 inches. Hell
yes.
We get those. We knock out those colors, man. We take those 12 to 16 inches, man. Those are right
that's a sweet spot right there.
Yeah, but man, here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing. Here's a side note. We've done such a great job as an angling community to catch and release that people aren't keeping the fish that they need to keep and eat. They're not keeping them when they should be. There's studies out there I've talked about on this podcast. You can go find that shit. But there's a reason why the scientists in the state and the biologists have created a size, a creel limit, and a limit. Because, there's a ass load of 12 to 14 inches in most lakes, regardless of how big the fish get. 12 to 14 inches need to be coiled out because 99% of them ain't going to get no bigger than 12 to 14 inches.
And all they're doing is they're competing for the forage from the bigger fish, and they're preventing your bigger fish from getting bigger, man. Yep.
And they taste excellent on a pizza.
They taste phenomenal. They taste phenomenal, period.
We on that same note, we did an ocean trip recently. One of the quote unquote garbage fish up here in the ocean is called a sea robin. You guys ever seen what a sea robin looks like?
I did one time. That's an ugly ass fucking fish.
Yeah. So it's I don't even know how to describe it, man. The head is armored, right? They've got these big pectoral fins that are like wings, and then underneath they have fins that don't have any webbing, and it looks like crab claws. They are messed up looking. So we were catching tons of them, and Nelson said, "Hey, keep a couple big ones. We're going to put those on the pizza and try them." And I said, "Okay." So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, "Man, I got this armored head. What the hell do I do with it?" And I just took my fillet knife, because you got to bleed them out. I bled it out like I would a bass. I cut the whole throat and threw it in the cooler, right? And Nelson saw me do it, and he said, "You amateur." Now he guided. He had a charter. All right, he was in the ocean doing this for years, and he says, "Watch this." And he grabs one behind the next one he caught, and he took his knife and went like this. Like one little jab, and that thing went paralyzed and bled out, and that was it. I'm like, what did you just do? That was like ninja-like. What did you do there? I don't know what he did. It's his magic. He knows how to dispatch sea robins with a flick of a blade.
That's funny, right there.
So Brandon,
they're good. They were good.
I don't know about you, Brandon, but this Yankee talking about bleeding bass out. I ain't never bled a fish out, a freshwater fish, in my entire damn life.
Try it.
If I'm keeping it, I catch them, I throw them in the damn cooler with ice. When I get home, they're all stiff. You know,
So here's the deal. Here's why.
I don't ever bleed them bitches out.
So there's a reason for that. If you the next time you catch two bass to eat, cut one of them's throat and let it bleed out, and don't bleed out the other one, and then compare the flesh when you're done. It's white. It's white versus brown. It's like, it looks like a healthy whitefish. You know what I mean? Like a cod or whatever. If you don't bleed it out, the flesh just looks dirtier. Like it's because of the blood in there.
Shawn, do you see how?
Well, I know.
Shawn,
no. I get the reasoning behind bleeding the fish out. I know it's really prominent, especially in saltwater fish.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know that it's really, really specific when you catch like hybrids, like your white bass, striped bass mix.
Yep.
Because them things, dude, they taste. If you get one of them things and you don't bleed it out, like, and you fillet them and you get some of that bloodline on it, bro, them things, they taste super fishy, bro. Like just nasty fishy.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely, I do understand the concept and reasoning behind. I guess for me, it's never really made that big of a deal for me, especially because like bass don't really have a bloodline on them, and neither do like catfish typically.
Yeah.
So I've never really bled them out. I've just always
I guess it's just an aesthetics thing, but I like having like a whitefish being extremely, have that
no,
really,
I get it 100%.
yeah, that's
Makes
it.
sense
Just
to
look
me.
dirty. I've eaten them both ways. I haven't noticed the difference. I just prefer it.
Look, I'm fat.
That
I
dirty
ain't looking
flesh
at that
tastes
shit.
perfectly
I'm just
fine to
putting it in
me.
my mouth,
Yes,
chewing
it
it up,
does.
and eating it.
Yep.
There you go. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of stuff that goes in your mouth, Paul. Anyways.
Whoa, easy now. There's more shit that comes out of it.
Yes.
All right, Brandon, last question. Now, this is the one question that you have a couple seconds to think about, because don't fuck this one up. You will never live it down. Once you answer it, we'll go into a couple of questions or a couple of answers that we've got in the past, and we're going to name names as usual and chastise them. So this is what Bass and Brews is known for, besides being a crappy podcast. All right, you ready? What are your top 3 sandwich proteins?
Top 3 sandwich proteins
Top 3 sandwich proteins.
in order or any specific order?
Oh, it don't matter the order, just the top 3. It don't matter the order.
Oh.
Just the top
Turkey,
3 you're gonna choose. Turkey,
ham, or I like chicken. Like when you do like sliced chicken breast.
Nice. I love it.
Deli chicken breast or whatever. Yeah.
Bravo,
Good,
sir.
good,
Bravo.
Good. So we a good friend of the show, Delirious Angler, chose cheese.
That's right. He had cheese.
That's not a protein.
Exactly. It has as I tell my 8-year-old son when he says, "Can I have a snack?" And I say, "Yeah, it's got to be healthy. It's got to have protein." He says, "Can I have cheese?" I'm like, "Boy, that ain't a protein." Delirious Angler said cheese. We love him. He's great. He's a weirdo. We shouldn't have expected anything more. And then other good friend of ours, Bailey from Serious Angler, said,
"Oh man,
fucking spinach."
Spinach has iron in it, not protein.
It's got a little bit, but damn it, I grew up eating mayonnaise sandwiches. Look, piece of bread, an inch thick of mayonnaise. Like, you got to have the mayonnaise where you can measure it, and then another piece of bread. But I ain't never eaten no damn spinach sandwich. The hell kind of that? I mean, that's
Didn't I catch shit for saying tuna fish?
Tuna is good, man. I love a tuna fish sandwich.
What did I catch? You guys gave me a rash of shit for something.
Bo, I don't know, Shawn. That was forever ago. I have no idea.
There's been many arguments since then. I don't remember.
Yes, we have hollered at each other way too many times to think about a real protein, unlike some of the other people. Well, Brandon, that's it, man. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Look, I know you got some sponsors, some folks that help you out, do what you do. Shout them out right now. Tell us who you'd like to thank.
Oh, start. My bad.
Yeah. Well,
man.
You know what? That was a shitty ass question. That was a terrible Oprah question because I left a dangling participle at the end and didn't finish it. But yes, holler out you. Let me read. All right, let me start over. Brandon, holler out the people you'd like to thank, sponsors, friends, etc.
Man, I just want to give a shout out to everybody, man, that supports me and the brand, man. Everybody, the whole TBFD gang, man, Charlie, my wife, just anybody that has been down for this whole entire thing throughout this entire process, man, to just this journey that I'm on to help me grow and, to just, again, grow the sport of fishing, man, because, again, everything that we do is always about for the love of fishing. Shout out to all my sponsors and partners. I really appreciate all the support and help that you guys have always given me. You've always been down for the cause, always been down for my vision and everything like that. And you bring me great success out here on the water, man. And man, shouts out to you guys, man, for having me on. This is a blast. Shouts out to the whole, Paddle and Fin Network, man. I mean, the whole thing over there is just awesome, man. I just really appreciate all of y'all.
Hey, shout out where we can find Charlie, because we hadn't done that yet. And Charlie is y'all are the A team for content you put out there. So shout out Charlie where we can find him and his stuff.
Charlie is just Digital Wells on Instagram. Charlie, he doesn't post anything anywhere else, and he doesn't even really post much on his Instagram, but he posts when he goes on his little solo missions. He works from home, so
he's behind a lot of people.
Yeah, he's definitely been, again, fundamental to my strategizing of growing this thing and building it to what it is today. He's just as invested in this as I am, even though he's behind the scenes. Great friend, great dude, man. Just a solid all-around individual. And really appreciate him, man, for everything, man. So Digital Wells. He's Digital Wells on Instagram.
WELLS, right?
Yep.
Digital Wells. Where can we find you on the social medias?
I'm that bass fishing dude basically everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, stupid TikTok. I don't really use it, but I got one.
TikTok.
Yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere, man. That bass fishing dude. You can find me everywhere. Thatbassfishingdude.com. Check it out.
Shawn, anybody you want to holler out real quick before we end this?
The usual. I'm Shawn the Fisherman on Instagram. I kind of maintain a Facebook with the same thing. Follow Jigs and Bigs, listen to Jigs and Bigs, listen to these guys that are so nice and letting me co-host while Alex is out, I don't know, pretending to be enlisted.
Whoa. Oh, my Lord.
That's not news. I've said that before. Coast Guard. Woo!
I also have a podcast. It's new. There's only like one episode on there. It's not done in this type of format. It's a completely different type of format, but it's just That Bass Fishing Dudes podcast. It's on basically everything. So
I didn't know that. I'll go check that out. We need to get that rolling, dude, because I tell you what, that would work for you. All right. Well, we thank you, Shawn the Fisherman, for coming on. You're old. You're ugly.
Yes.
We love you.
Yes.
We appreciate you coming on. I can't wait to scream and holler at each other again. Brandon, thanks a lot for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. Drew, Paddler's Playbook, thanks for hooking us up with that. Also, the intro music that's new. I think we're on the 4th or 5th episode with that. Saltside Jess, the sweetest voice in podcast land. If y'all want an entry with Saltside Jess, holla at me. I'll get you in touch with Drew to get that done. We thank him for this intro. Hookset Hoodlums family. We love them. Great apparel. They got some new stuff coming out. We'll see y'all on the next one. Hey, y'all hang on in the back room now.